when you have poverty that has been driven by whatever factor, but in our case, COVID. What happens then is that people find themselves inclined, and more so even young people, inclined towards two things: drug abuse, crime. Crime, drug abuse, they are like Siamese twins. People who ingest, people who smoke, people who partake in drug abuse are very likely to be influenced to get into crime and are very likely to gravitate towards crime.
Mm-hmm.
Now, kidnapping seems to be something that is rampant on this continent.
It is.
In Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
it's a growing enterprise.
It is across the states. And
Yes.
they're kidnapping hundreds of young people in universities, in high schools, begging for ransom. We saw a horrible case whereby they started killing off these young students by the hour if they didn't receive the ransom, and they were making it public. I mean,
What is that in the name of? Religion? What religion?
it's, look, to be honest, it's a desperate situation that a lot of, look, there is nothing that would ever make it excusable or justifiable. If we're looking at the reasons as to why these cases have risen in the recent past, over the last 1 year, is that people are in a dire state of affairs. People are desperate.
They're not sure about tomorrow.
No, desperate to the point whereby they have to commit these heinous crimes. According to them, that they have to. Of course, when we're looking at it from a logical point of view, you actually don't need to go towards crime. But that's what's going on here. That people are becoming more and more desperate, and then they're ready to cross over whatever boundaries, visible or not, that they cross these boundaries and then take life in the matter in which it's happening. It's terrible. Being somebody who, I mean, just 6 months ago, with my mother being in that situation whereby, a kidnapping almost happened. It is not, it's terrible what's going on, and people are doing it for the money. It's for the money.
Let me ask, because this question I have to ask. It's not random.
No, it's planned. They watch you for some time.
And they have some knowledge of you.
Yes.
So it isn't as though they just decide, okay, who should we pick on today? No. They take their time. They observe as you go, and they watch.
You go along, they know where you live. They know you're coming and going.
And in cases where they kidnap large numbers, it means they also have people within that institution who informs them so that they have adequate information as to what it is that would be required for this really bizarre activity to be successful.
Now you can imagine, and look at this case with this young angel. What happened here? They probably got frustrated. They could tell now there's no money coming. So, you know what? We're going to get rid of her.
Now, you tell me, why kill the child?
Yeah.
Why? Why not just let the child go?
Let her go. Let her go. You'd rather even that she be lost.
This is
wandering,
why
but not
I
killed.
brought in the element of drug abuse. If you every time, remember the face of those 4 young men who disappeared and were killed. These are very young people.
Yes.
Okay? If you were to simply go by their faces, you couldn't get more ordinary. They are just like some relative, some person that you know.
Yeah, it's your run-of-the-mill Joe that you see in the neighborhood, or
Yes.
you would expect to see them, driving to work, something,
That's it.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, what is this thing that informs these individuals to go into crime? I will tell you what helps spur this on. Remember, we keep talking about impunity and the unfortunate consequences of it. When people in authority seem to be engaged in crime, and that's what pilfering from the state coffers is, it's crime, okay? You may think it is just crime, but you are sending a really deadly message. Because you are in authority, this is what you are doing. You may not want to, but the message is that if authority can do it and get away, so can we.
So can we.
Yes. And the influence will come in with the law enforcement. They will ask themselves why it is they need to bother enforcing laws that because
nobody's following them anyway.
Yes, you arrest someone, you take them in, somebody else who knows somebody
connect somebody so that they can get out on bail.
Of police officers being transferred because they were actually doing their job. After a while, they give up. They figure, something.
Forget it. It's too frustrating.
No, this it's not worth it.
Let me do
in
the
some
one that
cases,
I can see.
Your life is threatened, and all you're doing is your job. Remember, when we do our promos, there's somebody who says that we have impunity written in the DNA. how right that individual is.
Quite.
Now, these are the consequences. And you know what? Even children. I remember talking to a neighbor of mine who is the child who actually shocked them. They were stopped by policemen and they're being asked about tires which were not quite up to scratch. And the child suggested, but Dad, why don't you just give that policeman 200 shillings and then we can go?
Oh, good Lord.
This is an 8-year-old child.
They already know it.
They think it is normal. An 8-year-old child is not dealing with the morality of it. Problem, you deal with it. They've stopped you.
It's a process.
It's a
we
process
understand
so
this
that
is
we
how
can
it
continue.
happens. Yeah.
Yes.
So we can move on.
8-year-old.
That is very sad.
This is something I was told 4 years ago. That child is now 12 years old. You tell me, as that child continues growing up, what sort of person? And it's not the child. If that child has that idea, the people, the kids this child plays with probably also think the same.
Absolutely.
What do you think we are breeding here?
My good Lord.
I was told that story. I usually am quick to quip. I kept quiet and listened because I knew the child.
I don't even have what to say.
A really pleasant child. But as far as they were concerned,
This is done. Why are we even
give
having a
the
conversation
guy
about
200 shillings so that we can
Problem
continue?
solved.
Yes. Dad, why aren't you giving this person 200 shillings?
Sheesh. It's 9 minutes to 7. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Continues.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is Spice FM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
What
you.
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's
Spice FM. Nyeri. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
All right,
FM,
8 minutes to 7
Nairobi.
o'clock, and we're still looking at what's going on. Quite a lot today. And I'm sorry, but still remaining in the area of the morbid city. A mystery woman linked to the deaths of a German man and his lover. Sheesh. All right, so police are looking for a mystery woman they suspect could be behind the deaths of a German and his Kenyan girlfriend in Mombasa and Kilifi counties. Mr. Cribe Daita died on Saturday after falling from his house on the 5th floor of an apartment building in Bamburi, a day after his lover Cynthia Akinyi, 24, was found killed. Her body was found wrapped with a bedsheet, and stashed under a bed in their house at Mdomondoni, Kwa Chief in Mtwapa, Kilifi County on Thursday.
Again,
Mdomondoni.
Mdomondoni, but go ahead. Yes.
Oh, it's Mto.
Mdomondoni, yes.
But it says MD.
All right, let's call him Mdomondoni then.
Okay, let's just
if
do
I'm
it for
not
now.
wrong, it was Mdomondoni, yes.
Sawa. Before the German was found dead, police spent the better part of Friday looking for him as he was suspected to have killed Miss Akinyi. But now detectives believe the mystery woman from Kiembeni in Bamburi, said to have been Mr. Daita's other lover, had a hand in the deaths due to a possible lover triangle. Yesterday, detectives told the Nation they doubted the initial theory that Mr. Daita could have committed suicide. It is alleged that Daita had another woman but was still investigating the matter to know what caused his death. According to one of the investigative officers, the German could have been pushed from the 5th floor and the deaths of the two were well coordinated. He said there was communication between Mr. Daita and the woman on the run. These things keep finding their way to us, but yeah, this is another situation of just that.
There's an interesting story that has been building with the time. Benjamin Netanyahu has been Prime Minister of Israel for 12 years.
Yes, he has.
And counting. Now, there are people who are willing and eager to end his reign. The Israeli opposition leader is a gentleman by the name of Yair Lapid. Okay. Now, a very unlikely coalition is taking place. He is considered, among others, to be a secular centrist. I'm not quite sure what
that is.
Secular centrist is. But I get the impression he is not right-wing or left-wing.
Neither is he leaning on the side of religion.
No, he's not.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the political scene in Israel, it is one of the most interesting ones. Interesting in this sense, okay? All those parties have people who support it vividly, strongly. And part of the reason why you find the politics as it is because within the country itself, within Israel and Israelis, the divisiveness is actually palpable. Now, you will find that, for instance, we keep talking about the rising of young people, okay? They also have an issue where there are many young people who have a very, should we say, right-wing perspective. And therein lies the problem that they keep having in the neighbors. Some of the older people within Israel would really like to live in peace. This thing of constantly...
It's too much for them.
Yes.
Let's just finish.
Let's have a two-nation situation here and let's get on with life. But the thing is, if you look at the number of elections and counter-elections and by-elections that they have, there's nothing that points to their politics more than ever. And now the coalition that they're trying to form to get Netanyahu is one of the most unlikely coalitions. Now, if you want to understand how it is democracy pans out when you have a parliamentary system, it is this. Because you really have to talk to other people. If you don't talk to other people, you will not be in the driving chair. And this is what is happening here.
The negotiations have to take place.
People have to agree.
You cannot sit in your corner and expect that these things are going to fall in your lap without talking to folks.
And the issue of there being one party, because Netanyahu's party actually got the bulk of the votes, but not enough to form a government. So forming a government means he had people with him.
Yeah.
Now, if they also leave, put it this way, you think you understand musical chairs. Well, just watch this particular space and get a new understanding of musical chairs, political musical chairs.
Okay, we're going to keep looking into the papers in the next hour because there's quite a lot to cover and I think serious discussions to have. But before we get around to 7 o'clock, just one more story. Looming thunderstorm as the country's second highest court running dangerously low on judges. The Court of Appeal is on the verge of becoming unconstitutional due to a shortage of judges following the elevation of Justices Martha Koome and William Owuku to the Supreme Court. So with the promotion of these two, the numbers now are dwindling at the Court of Appeal. The court currently has 13 judges, just one above the minimum constitutional requirement of not fewer than 12. This means that if one of the judges vacates office, the court will be operating with the bare minimum number, and should two judges leave, it will grind to a halt. The country's second highest court was an establishment of a maximum of 30 judges, but before the exit of Justices Koome and Owuku, it had 15. In July 2019, the Judicial Service Commission recommended to President Uhuru Kenyatta the appointment of 11 judges to the court to shore up their numbers and deal with case delays. However, the nominees are yet to be appointed, as well as 30 others from the JSC. Remember those 41 judges? The 41 that is a bone of contention, 11 actually were to be for the Court of Appeal, and then 30 were to be appointed as High Court judges. That has not happened. And this could actually be a contributory factor to the unconstitutionality of this court. If one judge vacates office,
that's it.
That's it.
But you know what is of interest? This is how certain decisions come to bite you. The BBI case, if it goes to the Court of Appeal, will require an expeditious approach. Now, you tell me, even if there's some urgency to it and there aren't enough judges, how urgent will that urgency be treated? So, had those 41 judges been appointed,
we would not be having this problem.
No, this discussion would be a completely different discussion. Completely different, because they would be equal to the task. They'd be able to spread the duties around.
They'd be getting the job done.
Right now, my friend, I think it's chock-a-blocked. They may not know exactly what to do and where to turn. Because by the time things get to the appeal, they're all serious.
Yes. by the time they're at the Court of Appeal, by the time cases are brought before the Court of Appeal, it's gone through the other wheels of justice. The wheels of justice have already ridden over that, and it's like, okay, we need to make a decision quick, fast, and in a hurry. And if you don't have enough in terms of judges to expend justice there, then we are looking, actually, this is one time where I hear looming crisis as one that it actually is a looming crisis. We're coming around to 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at the news and then look into traffic and see what's happening. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a Situation Room.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Kenya and Burundi have signed several agreements aimed at strengthening cooperation between the two East African nations. President Uhuru Kenyatta announced renewed relations between the two countries, saying they had signed several agreements in agriculture, sports, public service, culture and foreign affairs, among other sectors.
We reaffirmed our commitment to strengthen and to deepen further the long-standing fraternal relations between Kenya and Burundi. The cooperation between our two countries is built on a solid foundation of shared values and principles to foster sustainable social economic development and transformation of our two countries, and also a vibrant and united East African community, as well as an integrated and prosperous Africa.
Meanwhile, Burundi President Evariste Ndayishimiye also thanked Uhuru for his involvement of the peace process in their country. He further welcomed Kenyans to invest in Burundi.
To once again thank you for your personal involvement in our recent political achievements and the role of your country, Kenya, in the Burundi peace process. Kenyan investors could take advantage of many business opportunities in Burundi in several sectors such as agriculture, infrastructure, services, health, education, energy, mining, transport, tourism, banking, ICT, and others.
Also, President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga will today lead Kenyans in celebrating the 58th Madaraka Day. The ceremony will take place at the Jomo Kenyatta Stadium in Kisumu, with only 3,000 people allowed to attend. The stadium is already open for guests to enter. The Ministry of Health says it will work with security officials to ensure that all measures to reduce the spread of coronavirus are observed. Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye will be an official guest at the historic celebrations. Susanna Owio, Freddie Jakadongo and Idi Achieng are among artists lined up to perform in this year's event. 2 people have died after an aircraft they were in crashed at Vuria Hill in Taita Taveta County on Monday evening. Authorities have confirmed the crashed aircraft is believed to be a C-172 Caravan, registration number 5YCFE, that was being operated by Flying Training Center and had 2 passengers on board. Residents of Maila in Naivasha are in shock after a scorned husband stabbed his wife more than 15 times, killing her on the spot. The man, however, managed to escape before members of the public caught up with him. The incident comes barely 2 weeks after a taxi driver killed his girlfriend at Kayole Estate by strangling her following a domestic quarrel. Earlier, a 32-year-old woman was also murdered and her body dumped in a water tank in Maimahio following a row with her boyfriend. This comes as the government has reported a rise in gender-based violence cases during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
All right, so not much of it this morning. Coming off Mombasa Road, it's flowing very well today, and I think it's even encouraging some people to go faster than they normally would, so please be careful. Coming out of industrial area looks good, so let's just tell you where it's looking fantastic, and that's just about everywhere. Coming off Jogo Road out into the city, to and fro industrial area out in there, fantastic. The southern bypass is like a dream, as is the eastern and the northern, and coming out of Red Hill looks very, very good today, and not much of an issue. I think you can actually get from Mombasa Road to Westlands in 10 minutes. if you're driving, like not a crazy person, but yeah, I think you can actually do it today. Today would be the day. But doing all that and maintaining caution, because we don't want any drama because the roads are clear. All right, we'll keep an eye on things. Help us out too, just in case you run into something. I don't think there should be any incidents today. Either I hope there won't be. We pray for the best. SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get in touch with us, just in case. Text us on 40127. We're going to keep it moving, even if it's already moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation.
It's Madaraka Day. It's the 1st of June, 2021. And this is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's about 6 minutes after 7 o'clock. And we're in the studio with you this morning, Nduoko and Siti Muga. It's Madaraka Day. And Siti, do the thing.
Do the thing?
You have your flag. You're waving your flag.
No, I am going to wave my flag.
Oh.
See?
Every hour, the toing and froing gets more steady and more. It's even doing a twirl.
It gets even circular.
So if you want to see CT waving his flag, SpiceFM KE, the live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and you can have a look at this delightful waving of the flag by CT this morning. So as you wave your flag, how about you give us that proverb, babe?
When a needle falls into a deep well, many people will look into the well, but few will be ready to go down after it.
It's true. Forget the needle, man. Oh, that's stress. The needle has fallen. Get another needle. Isn't it?
Like that.
Just like that. Get another needle. Okay. CT, unbelievable. Okay, so there's a lot of going on in the news, and we're going to keep looking at those. But it would sound unbelievable, but there are a number of people, John, who don't know what Madaraka Day is.
Well, actually,
supposed to represent.
Yes, especially when you have Jamhuri Day, you have Mashujaa Day, and they wonder, okay, so Mashujaa Day was what was often called Kenyatta Day. It's to remember those who actually fought for our freedom. That's the whole point of Madaraka. Madaraka is now, fighting takes place. We celebrate the people who fought, those who were involved in politics, those who were involved in agitation, those who were in the forest, all aspects of participation for this freedom. They are rewarded. You know, we became a colony in 1920. Now, from that point onwards until 1963, it was June 1st. That's when we're given self-rule. We are now told, okay, folks, and we had our first prime minister.
Right.
It was Jomo Kenyatta. Here, you can begin rule. You can begin to rule yourself.
Yourselves.
Yes. Now, to get full independence is a process. Takes a bit of time. Get your ducks in a row. And then when you figure out how you want to go about these things and everything is in place, then you get independence. Now, Independence Day, now that's Jamhuri.
That's Jamhuri.
Yes.
Okay.
In summary. That's what it is.
Thank you, Mwalimu. So a lot of you are tuned in this morning saying hello to us. We'll say hello to you too. Dominic Lysa, happy Madaraka Day to you. So Jethro Kirui this morning is tuned in asking what our frequencies are. So let's just give those to you. If you're in Nairobi, you're 94.4, 87.9 in Mombasa, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 102.5 in Kisumu, and 97.9, or rather 97.7 in Malindi. So, If Jethro is in Bomet and Kericho, then your 96.7 will be able to get you there. Sawa. All right. Hesbon, tuned in from Mitume Kitale. Good morning to you. Godfrey Mohanji, Madaraka. Happy Madaraka Day from Ilare Moyes Bridge. Salams, Club Wasingishu to you too. Happy Madaraka Day, families. Take us, Aaron. Bade Ashley, good morning from Madaraka, from Machakos. And happy Madaraka Day to you. Mayan is tuned in. Good morning. Kasarani locked in with Gasheri. Good morning. And happy Madaraka Day to you too, Henry Malumu, as well as Wise Man Says. Nyeketi, happy Madaraka Day to you guys. And thank you for keeping it the Situation Room this morning. Very happy to have you in the room as the conversations continue. All right. So we're still looking at those news, at those stories that are making headlines. 90,000 is the number, CT, of teachers that will start CBC training. Remember how we had talked a few days ago, actually, about that? We don't need to worry because with the new system in place, you can have training on the job. And this was when we looked at the scrapping of this Bachelor of Education, now that there were new requirements coming in. 90,000 teachers were still going to get the training anyway. It doesn't matter. And now we see this announcement that this is going to happen. More than 90,000 primary school teachers started a 1-week training in the competency-based curriculum yesterday in preparation for the grade 5 rollout in July. So right now it's still standard 5. Come July, it'll be grade 5. The training targets 3 teachers from each of the 32,200 primary schools in Kenya. The head teachers and 2 teachers, one from grade 1 to 3 and another one from grade 4 to 5, teachers from special needs schools will also be trained. They will be trained by curriculum support officers and CBC champions who were trained last week. In a letter to regional and county directors, the Teacher Service Commission Assurance and Standards Director Ruben Ndamburi instructs them to identify and invite teachers to be trained and coordinate and monitor the training sessions. They were also expected to prepare and submit a training report at the end of the exercise. They should have at least 15 teachers per training room, according to the circular, stressing the need for observance of COVID-19 guidelines. The teachers will be trained in curriculum designs, methodology, and continuous assessment, which has been one of the most significant changes in CBC. Under the new system, teachers will be the key assessors in national examinations, and as national examinations will be done away with. So they will have an annual assessment with a major assessment then at the end of grade 6, and then moving on to lower high secondary and then upper secondary. So the system is changing, and every year a new grade is added. This year it'll be grade 5. Where there are no special schools, invite one teacher from the selected special units. CBC has adopted a cumulative approach to assessment, where a learner's achievement is measured and the scores stored until they complete their primary education at grade 6. There have been concerns that teachers have not been adequately trained on the assessment, which is a critical component of the CBC and will have an impact on the learner's life. So we can see this training taking place, which is a good thing. I mean, and like you said before, look, why scrap this degree that is working perfectly well when along the line of a teacher's career they will have to go through other trainings based on the fact that the curriculum is changing anyway. They will have to go through training, so there's nothing wrong with it. Like I say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why scrap this degree when you still have trainings that will come along anyway? And we see this is an example of that, just that happening now.
This isn't actually new. We used to call it in-servicing, and in the days when you could begin your training and qualification as a teacher with a certificate, there was a P3 certificate, P2, P1, and then from there, P for primary, you would then go for a diploma course, okay? And then with the diploma, hopefully with time, you could go for a degree course. Now, it isn't as though you left your teaching post, no. You went to school during the holidays because schools have 3 holidays.
Yeah.
You enrolled, and you continued learning. It was like continuous learning, okay? So over time, you are actually upgrading your qualifications and your abilities. It existed. But all this was in the era before what we call the internet. Now the internet, and especially if you look at what Google has done with online learning and other platforms have done with online learning, you then have a situation where it's even better. You don't have to wait for the holidays. You can set time aside on a daily basis to study.
For learning.
Yes. Now, because of this learning, Google, remember, also introduced certificates or certification for training, not in education, but in other competencies. Aha. Now that this discussion thickens. The argument that has been used to further this new push by the TSC is that you'll increase the competence. I really don't understand it at all. I honestly don't.
Competence of whom? Of the teacher?
Actually, I would ask how.
Yeah.
What is this thing that you're going to do that isn't done by what we already have, apart from just lengthening the time that somebody is going to study? Why break it up? Why are you saying, okay, do your Bachelor of Arts, then
come
diploma?
do 1 year?
Why?
Just put it's together right now.
Why? When this delightful concoction arose from the need, previously that's what it was. You did this particular course and then you went and did a diploma or a certificate to qualify as a teacher. There are countries that actually ensure you will not be a teacher until you have a master's. Meaning, this training they're talking about, you train, yes.
But all-encompassing in that degree.
Now, so that when somebody becomes a teacher, my friend, you are thoroughly schooled. There's no ifs and buts, but countries of that sort actually also among the people who are best remunerated are the teachers. Now, guess what? Look at the products of their school system. Excellent. Just look at the product of the school system. It tells you these are people who have given teaching a priority.
A priority.
Yes.
Yeah, because like you said, some of the highest... Okay, of course, we want to go to the Scandinavian countries, right?
And to go to Germany.
Finland, Norway, yes, Germany, the Netherlands.
Yes.
They pay their teachers
extremely well.
Extremely well, but then they also harp on the training that those teachers have, because essentially, what are you doing? As a teacher, you are essentially drawing on a blank canvas that is the learner,
and they've understood it,
and they get it that anything you are putting there must be sound.
They want to ensure that you are really well equipped for it. So it's not as though, you see, it's the opposite of our situation here, where for the longest time, people who ended up doing education are people who couldn't get what they wanted in the first place.
Yeah, so you fail to get...
it's not really competitive.
Then take education.
Not really. But in these countries, you want to be a teacher, you are among the best students you can find. They take from the best. We take from the second best. And so, you've heard me argue this before. You have many people who are in the teaching profession who don't want to be there.
No.
And teaching isn't one of these functions that you actually take on just because it's a job. You really want to do well in it. No.
And it will be evident. It will be evident if your interest is not there. It will be evident that it's
the worst thing, it will be evident in the output. And the output here are human lives. When you are disinterested in what you do you know what you're passing across to the students who you teach?
The same disinterest and the same passive approach.
Disregard.
It doesn't really matter, lackadaisical attitude towards getting things done. And you will be surprised at the imprinting that takes place then on 25, on 30, on 60, or on 70 learners that you're talking to, teaching, influencing on a daily basis. You don't have to say a word to influence anybody.
I dare say that if you look at the turmoil that our school system has experienced over the years, you can trace it back to the time when we started on this program of wanting to ensure we expand the education sector, but we made a mistake. We were forcing people to go into teaching when they didn't want to teach.
Yeah.
It was the course that you got when you couldn't qualify for what
something
you really
else
wanted. And if you give it a cycle, you would find that because of that, as opposed to previous time when people who taught wanted to teach, you actually have people producing, they are disinterested in what they do, they produce people even more disinterested
because
give it another cycle.
It loses its potency as it goes down the ladder, right?
Give it another cycle. People start burning libraries. Now, the statement that is made when a library is burnt is something really, really serious. It's so alarming, it should have sent alarm bells ringing.
A long time ago.
We continued ensuring that people who didn't get what they wanted were taken to teaching.
And frustrated.
Yes. You've heard me say this also in humor, that at some point when we had the P1, P3, the only other cadres that were worse in terms of qualification If you wanted to join the discipline forces, I think a basic requirement was you needed to do terribly in the exam.
It's 19 minutes past 7 o'clock. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Yes, this is it. Spice FM. "24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 13, highs of 24, 14 and light rain in Nyeri, highs of 22 and coming back down to lows of 14. It's 14 and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 25. 25 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 11. Mostly sunny conditions at 18 in Kisumu, 29 the high. It's 17 degrees and sunny in Kakamega, highs of 29 and lows of 14. 26 degrees and light rain in Mombasa, highs of 30 and lows of 24. We'll also see highs of 30 in Malindi. It's raining at 23. Mostly sunny conditions at 23 in Kampala, highs of 27. 29 will be the high in Dar es Salaam, where it's sunny at 23. It's raining in Joburg, and it's going to be a very chilly day as they get into the winter. Highs of 13 and lows of 2. Light rain in Lagos at 27 with highs of 32 and lows of 26. And finally, for now, in Kinshasa, it's cloudy at 24, highs of 33 and lows of 22.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Morning done right. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, and we continue to look at stories making headlines today. Ndroko and Siti Muga in the studio with you on this Madaraka Day, and the flag is flying high. Self-rule for Kenya, and continue to look at some of the stories that make headlines. All right, in the nation. I had that story, and then it just. Okay, where did it go? All right. So it's interesting. I remember years ago when China's population was rising heavily, and then there came a national or policy edict that then couples could only have one child. Now, China allows couples to have 3 children. China will allow couples to have 3 children after a census showed its population is rapidly aging, state media said yesterday, further unwinding 4 decades of strict family planning controls in the world's most populous nation, which have strangled the birth rate. In 2016, China relaxed its controversial one-child policy, one of the world's strictest family planning regulations, to a 2-child policy due to widespread concerns over an aging workforce and economic stagnation. Despite government efforts to encourage couples to have children, China's annual births have continued to plummet to a record low of 12 million in 2020, the National Bureau of Statistics said last month, as the cost of living rises and women increasingly make their own family planning choices. So, the slump threatens a demographic crisis, which has alarmed the ruling Communist Party, headed by President Xi Jinping, booking in a shortage of young workers to drive an economy experts say will by 2050 have to support hundreds of millions of the elderly. A Monday meeting of the elite Politburo leadership community hosted by Xi announced a further loosening of the state's control over the size of families. To actively respond to the aging population, a couple people can have 3 children. State media Xinhua reported. The Politburo meeting also promised accompanying support measures that are also conducive to the country's population structure. Though these were left unspecified, China's fertility rate stands at 1.3, below the level needed to maintain a stable population, according to the Bureau of Statistics. The once-in-a-decade 2020 results published last month also showed that China's population grew at its slowest rate since the 1960s, reaching 1.41 billion. I love it that the state gets involved even in how many children that you have. I was a young student of international relations when they now set this one child, because they saw, hold on a minute, this country is basically going to burst its banks. We have too many people are having babies like bunnies. It is too much, so stop it. It became a thing that every corner of the country, they were checking how many children you had.
But the terrible thing about that, it also brought in something fairly ugly. People preferred male children.
Yes.
And so there was a problem. People who, because of modern technology, you could tell before a child was birthed what particular gender they were going to have.
And if they were girls, they were terminating them.
Yes, they were.
Yes.
They were. That's an ugly side to the whole story.
It is. But at that point, I'm looking at it from this point whereby they said, you know what, the country is growing too quickly, not even in terms of development, because when the population was growing, it was at this time that they had instituted their 60-year plan for development. This is the last cycle that they're in now. And these 5-year continuous plans were in place. But they said we cannot have this happen when we have the population growing at the rate in which it is growing. So stop it, one child. But then look at another danger. So that means you have a whole bunch of elderly in the population who will not be able to sustain a workforce of such economic developmental proportions in the next 30 years. If that happens, people are going to be too old to be able to work. How are we going to sustain this strong economy that this 60-year plan has essentially set up if we don't have people young enough to do it? So, all right, in the next 30 years, we need able-bodied people. Go. Start having children, and we can allow you have up to 3. I love it. As in, the state even gets involved. So we're going to have to be able to run this economy in the next 19, 20 years. So please start having children now. You can have more than 1, more than 2. Go ahead. And you can have 3, but that's a cap on it.
You see, one of the things that also happens with countries that have aging populations is they relax the immigration laws.
Yes. Japan is doing that right now.
Yes.
There's some countries in Europe that are doing that right now. Some of the Scandinavian countries.
Why don't we just let's be precise, Canada is doing it. After the Second World War, Germany did it, and that is why you have a very huge population of Turks in Germany. Yes. But therein also lies another story. You've been in that country for God knows where, and yet certain rights are not
yours.
Accorded to you.
Yeah.
Yes. So, again, there's a certain aspect about humankind and the way people go about things that constantly has to be questioned and constantly has to have light shining on it. Because in the absence of that, human beings are capable of doing some really terrible and horrible things.
Tell me about it.
Yes. By the way, one of the problems, I think, again, of having an aging population is this. You don't have enough people contributing to the national coffers. If anything, you have people whom you need to give money. So you can you can increase the retirement age, but remember just the natural laws of attrition, the numbers will still not be big enough.
Right.
No, it won't.
They won't.
Yes. It's a lovely symbiotic relationship, having a large population, especially if they are economically viable and they are involved in economic activities. It's good for the country. It's very, very good for the country. There's something on page 16 again of the Daily Nation. This is the column by Mashare Gaitho. It's an interesting column because it's like the speech that the president, the official speech of the president. That is what we have as the opinion. But yes, it is.
Yeah.
But there's something about it that caught my attention. And that is the tail end of it, the summary at the end. This is what the speech reads. We will continue to look for creative ways to ensure that the dream does not die. This is, of course, the reference to the BBI. So that by the By the general election in August next year, we will have achieved some of it, if not all, of the reforms critical to a resolution of historical injustices and the building blocks of a stable, united, prosperous future. Now, this is the bit that caught my attention. My fellow Kenyans, gathered here in Kisumu today, we can resolve to renew the building bridges spirit, address the concerns of the doubters, this one got me, retrace our steps and correct where we have gone wrong, and invite all aboard so that we march together on as one towards attainment of our noble goals.
Very good.
You know, these are things that can be done without the BBI.
Yes.
Retracing your steps?
Very possible.
Can we have those 41 judges?
Sticking point, CT?
Well, I'm simply saying this is easy. This is easy picking.
It can be done. There's things that can be done now.
Actually, the president can do it as quickly as I'm snapping my fingers.
You don't have to wait for any kind of constitutional amendment to have these things
Take
happen.
that step and then see what happens. And say, folks, okay, let's move forward. Let's do this one.
Showing people that you're really interested, because what it does.
Nice speech.
Showing people that you're really interested in this development that you speak of every time. You don't have to wait for that moment where you say, okay, let's change the constitution. Because then what it does is that you're telling people essentially that you want to change the length and the strength of the reins of power and then slide in all these other things. Well, guess what? If you're really interested, slide in those things now. Hire the 41 judges, sort out the commissions that need help, increase budget allocations to counties. You don't need to wait for a constitution to be changed in order to have some of those things done. Let's just be honest.
You know, if you really want to make changes, there are certain arms of government that you really have to strengthen.
Absolutely.
And one has to see the strengthening and okay,
it can't be word of mouth.
These people have been provided with the wherewithal to carry out their duties well. Yes. When that happens, we can say the person said, the president said, His Excellency said, and he has done.
Because we have seen.
We certainly change. That conversation changes immediately.
Immediately.
Yes. So there are no ifs and buts. It's like, well, he said it, he has done it. Now.
Next.
Yes, next.
Shall we see if there's some traffic?
Yes, let's see.
What do you think?
Traffic. There always is some traffic, no matter how little.
Let's see. Okay. It's 29 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic and see in a short while.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
And really not much traffic this morning. Really not much traffic this morning, what we're looking at. Coming off of Mombasa Road, it's smooth sailing all the way through to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout and then out there towards Bunyala Road roundabout. That part of the road that was opened up, looking pretty good. Coming from Langata Road, where there's usually a mess every morning. Gong Road, fantastic. Awings Kodek, down through Valley Road into the city, looking great. Coming off of Thika Road into the CBD is smooth as your arm. Not much of an issue there at all. In and out of the city, it looks good. Maybe it'll pick up later, we don't know. But for now, I think we have good traffic situations. You get where you're going in record time because most people today, being Madaraka Day, are at home. Talk to us whichever way. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing, as much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
8 o'clock. You tuned in. SpiceFM KE on our live streams on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And if you're tuned around the country on this Madaraka Day, 94.4 in Nairobi. In Kisumu, where all the action is happening today, 102.5 and its environs. And Nduoko City Muga with you in the studio today as we're looking at some of the stories that are making headlines. And another one, and I look at some of the lay-lowing giants of possible economy in this country. And then there's a sad story of a multi-million shilling market in Turkana, or markets in Turkana County that are lying idle. Tukwel Town is located kilometers away from Lodwar, and it's among the few towns in Turkana where residents have easy access to affordable and fresh farm produce thanks to the nearby irrigation schemes along the permanent river Turkwel. Motorists from Uganda, Moroto Town, and those from Lodwar stop at the center to buy fresh farm produce at cheaper prices. They do not even have to get out of their cars. The items are taken to them. The traders have for years been selling the produce by the roadside, making good money from travelers along this route. 800 meters away from this roadside ritual is a multi-million shilling market constructed by the Turkana County government. Though complete with stalls, a fence, a gate, no trader has set up there. All of them choosing to sell their produce by the roadside and their makeshift stalls. Miss Foida Areng, a banana farmer at the nearby Napul irrigation scheme, is perfectly happy with how things are. At the end of the day, what matters for the traders is to be where customers can easily spot them and sell their commodities. That is why we are selling by the roadside. Further away in Nakuru Market at Kerio Delta in Turkana, in Nakurio Market in Kerio Delta in Turkana Central, another market has been lying idle for 5 years. The market was commissioned in August 2017 and only operated for 4 months before vendors moved out following claims of incitement of a section of members of the community. This is the story of multi-million shilling market stalls completed and spruced up by the Turkana County government that have remained idle, their potential users not finding use for them. Rock and a hard place situation because we are looking for development. Here development has been brought, but the traders refuse to use these facilities. They'd rather sit on the side of the road where the foot traffic is higher and they have direct access to their customers. But here we have essentially multi-million shilling projects going to waste. 5 years one of these markets has not been occupied. Another long period of time in Turkana County. They'd rather save the space for their clients who are going to and from Uganda or going into the country from another route. So I think it's,
in the name of development, sometimes there are excellent intentions by government. The story of markets that were built and not used.
Many.
Well, I have one in my backyard, in my home. A lovely market that was built by the previous MP, Professor Ayecho Lweny. It sits there.
So
it literally sits there.
Should they have been consulted before these markets were built, or which is justifiable? Somebody said, you know what, we need to clean up the place, have it looking modern, etc., set up these markets. Should the traders have been consulted? Would you like something like this? Should they have been consulted, or we go ahead and build them and we say, look, we've done this for you, come and sell your wares from here?
Actually, that market could have been built elsewhere. It could have been built. You see, you're talking about an economy, a community that was once thriving because of sugarcane farming. So because people were flush with money, people who had businesses had willing buyers.
Yeah.
So even that market would have been a useful place because when you sell wares, you need people to come and buy.
And buy.
Yes. But you'll find that very many such communities, young people aren't taking up farming.
No.
they either move to bigger towns or they are motorbike riders, but they are not traders in the real sense of the word. They don't sell agricultural wares and so forth. So yes, there was a time when that market would have made sense. But the question you ask is, where are the people to sell and where are the ones who are going to buy?
To buy.
Yes. Because part of the economy in many rural areas is not supported by the economic activity of the area, but by funding that comes from the family members who are working elsewhere, bringing in the money. Okay? So the thinking is sound in that you need to develop this thing, but I'm answering your question. Further consultation with the people of the area would perhaps have given them a project that would be more suitable to their needs. What is to stop you from actually building stalls by the roadside?
The roadside.
What is to stop you from putting a marketplace at that roadside? What stops you? Because if that's where the business is, should you perhaps not consider taking that marketplace there, as opposed to looking for a central place within maybe a center, as we call it, because those are not towns or townships, they're just centers. Why not take it there? It would have been perhaps less huge in size, but it would have served the purpose.
Well, because now it's going to waste.
I'm saying this because I have seen such centers when I'm driving towards Nyeri.
And they can be done.
Yeah, it's a marketplace. You can actually see it. There's stalls, there are all these things, but people still sell their wares on the roadside. There are stalls, meaning if you want something more, you can actually park your vehicle and actually go in that direction and shop.
Yeah.
Yes. So, again, the market, the building, excellent. Again, problem, location.
Location.
Yes.
Location is the issue.
Location.
That's why they say it the way they do.
Yes, they do. Now, there's something that I think has been happening in the field of epidemiology, and perhaps sufficient attention hasn't been paid to it. And this is the interaction of human beings with animals and what it is that this brings about with reference to diseases. Yes. The term that has been brought to bear on this situation is called zoonotic diseases, as from zoology.
Oh, got it. Okay. I thought so.
Yes, the ology of the zoo.
The zoo.
At a glance, okay, some of the common issues that one comes across, believe it or not, people know of rabies.
Yes.
Okay? You get this from the bite of a dog.
Or a bat.
Yes, or a bat. Okay? It attacks the central nervous system. All right? Now, 150 countries worldwide record stories of rabies. Okay? And it represents 2,000 deaths in Kenya annually.
Wow.
All right? Then, the other thing that people know about is something called the plague. Okay? It affects humans and other animals as well. All right? It's caused by bacteria. It's transmitted by a rodent or a flea.
Yeah.
People hear of it. Okay? You find it in Africa, South America, and in Asia. Now, this one people hear about all the time. It's called Salmonella.
Yep.
Okay? Now, this arises from eating contaminated food from chicken and chicken products. Symptoms usually begin 6 hours to 6 days after ingesting and lasts 4 to 7 days. Now, there are people who will tell you, I have amoeba. Terminology, people have gotten to understand it.
Yeah.
Usually, it's probably Salmonella.
Salmonella.
Okay. Now, we also have influenza. Okay. Now, this is found in ducks, chickens, pigs. Okay. Wait for it. Whales.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
So you come in contact with a whale and then what
Horses,
happens exactly?
You're unlikely to come in contact with a whale.
That's what, how are you going to get it from a whale?
Eating.
Eating the whale?
Well, not the whole whale,
Well,
surely.
just a little piece, I understand. If you ate the whole whale, then you probably would not be
Not
alive
possible.
to even fall sick.
Horses.
Okay.
Cats. Okay? That's influenza A. And then, there's something very interesting. There's something called West Nile virus.
Yes. I hear it's symptoms like malaria.
It is. And it's mosquito-borne.
Yes.
Okay? And it's found worldwide. Then there's brucellosis. Okay? It's mostly found in South America, Asia, and the Middle East, and is commonly found in sheep, cattle, goats, pigs, dogs.
Good grief.
The list goes on. I have just 2 more which I have left. Okay, there's Lyme disease. Okay?
Yes.
It's caused by the bacteria. And this one is brought about by a bite from a black-legged tick.
Specifically a black-legged tick.
Yes, Africa is actually exempt from this one. It's mostly found in Europe, US, and Asia.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
So we are not we're not home to any disease known to mankind. There are some that
are not actually
specialize in other
ours.
parts of the world.
Yes.
Now, of course, there is something that is really worrying. It's called COVID. Yes, COVID-19 to be precise. All right? COVID-19 is caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Okay, now we know that the understanding is that's probably transmitted by bats. But remember the debate about it?
Yeah.
Was it in the lab? It doesn't mean the lab produced it. It just means the lab, that's what labs do.
To
They
testing.
test and examining. But there's another one called MERS-CoV. Now, this one is a really interesting one, okay? Because it is known to exist in Kenya and it's been transmitted by camels. Yep, from the 1990s. It kills about 35% of those who have it, okay? We've had cases numbering 2,589 reported between April 2012 and April 2021.
Yeah.
940 deaths have been reported in the same period. ILRI has been researching on camels to determine, let me say, the veracity of this disease.
Of this disease, yeah.
Yes, and yes. 706% of camels have been infected.
706%?
Yes.
Of all camels in Kenya?
Yes.
Good grief.
But for them to be alive, it means it doesn't kill them.
Yeah, but I mean, they
They're
get
just
sick.
hosts.
They're the hosts. So then what happens is that if you then eat this contaminated camel
You've
meat,
got it.
you then, as a human, are the one who gets sick.
This is now interaction, as in people have cats in their homes. They don't go around eating cats.
Right.
They have dogs. Okay. Some people even keep chicken as pets.
Yeah.
Now,
No,
your
you-
interaction with these beings, either when you eat them or in close proximity, also puts you in the line of danger when it comes to some of these diseases.
It's like Ebola, like the bats and the monkeys that carried the virus wouldn't necessarily get sick, but once then transmitted to humans, then getting the bulk of the illness. Oof. Okay, it's 8:15. We'll just look at one more story before then we take a break. Kenya, just when you thought it couldn't get... speaking of self-rule, we're looking at, freedom to rule, essentially, right? And then still being shackled by the tentacles of debt. Kenya eyes 100 billion shillings from the World Bank and IMF loans for economic revival. Thought you couldn't borrow more? Well, you can. Kenya is expecting to receive more than 100 billion shillings in loans from the World Bank and the IMF beginning June. So June 1st brings many things. Even as the country seeks to secure more debt suspension and economic revival plan, the Central Bank of Kenya on Thursday said the disbursement of 75 billion shillings from the World Bank was expected in about 2 weeks, while another tranche of 41 billion from the IMF would be received in a couple of weeks. CBK Governor Patrick Njoroge said during a post-monetary policy committee meeting that the country expects to receive another loan from the African Development Bank. He did not, however, disclose the details on the amount. We expect to receive $750 million financing from both the World Bank over the next couple of weeks. We also expect that the IMF will complete review of the program sometime in June, which will lend to a disbursement of $410 million. Kenya's public debt stands currently at how much, CT? 7 trillion.
Yes.
And the new amount, or rather round, let's just call it a round, of loans come at a time when the country is expected to, is spending close to 1 trillion shillings yearly to service its debt. And as if that isn't enough, let's just take some more, shall we? That's what's going on.
Yes.
And now, I want to look at something really quickly that was reported by Bloomberg yesterday. It's
who are Bloomberg?
So Bloomberg is a journalist financial service, right? So reporting news on financial issues around the globe. And this specific story, Kenyan lawmakers balk at debt servicing costs, and they jump to $11 billion debt servicing to account for 66% of domestic revenue in 2020. Rising debt payments put Kenya at risk of debt default. According to this report, Kenya may be heading toward a default unless the government revamps its debt. The East African nation's debt servicing costs are poised to surge to a record 1.17 trillion shillings in the year starting July 1st, Parliamentary Budget Office said. That exceeds the administration's 660 billion shillings proposed spending on development projects. The increase in debt repayment indicates a growing level of fiscal inflexibility and therefore increased exposure to fiscal risks or debt default in absence of debt restructuring. That borrowing for development expenditure financing might no longer be a viable fiscal principle, and this is what the budget policy suggests going into thicker times. And we'll have that kind of conversation at around 9 o'clock today. It's 10 minutes to 8 o'clock. We'll look at a couple more stories making news this morning. SpiceFM KE is how you can get in touch on Facebook and Twitter. That's how you're watching the live streams as well. In a little while, we'll talk to the Internal Affairs Unit and find out how you can make complaints to the police. But for now, we'll look at a few more stories. It's now 10 minutes to 8 o'clock.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing, as much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatekana koroge unga nini.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Yes, it is. CT will be waving his flag in a short while. It is Madaraka Day after all. And what better way to celebrate than do just that? Okay, so looking at a couple of more stories before we get to the top of the hour. Free trade area provides Africa with new prospects. Still on the side of business. On this day in 1963, Kenya attained internal self-rule, joining other African countries such as Ghana and Nigeria. The Organization of African Unity had been established a few days before, on the 23rd of May. The OAU formed the African Economic Community for the mutual economic benefit or development of African countries. The AEC was intended to create 5 free trade areas, customs unions, a single market, a central bank, and possibly common currencies. In the 1980s and 1990s, we witnessed the formation of many regional trading blocs across Africa. These include the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, the Community of Sahel-Saharan States, CENSA, Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Southern African Development Community, SADC, the East African Community, EAC, and the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA, among others. So we created a One Africa Market. Was an agenda that the OAU continued to push. And we saw that. We saw the likes of Gaddafi talking about, let's come together as African states, OAU, let's come together, those who produce some of these natural resources and make these decisions for ourselves. Definitely his voice was heard with the likes of people like Thabo Mbeki, who said things like this on a regular basis. Let us come together as African states and see what we can do. Regionally, we can form these bodies, but we need to come together as one continent and see what it is that we can do, making sound decisions on the basis of economic economic development. So, globally, these regional economic integrations have been formed to ease trade across countries and continents. 2018, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area was founded. 54 of the 55 nations, except Eritrea, have since signed the agreement. The Free Trade Area creates new possibilities for Africa's trade prospects and economic advancements. January 1st this year, it started taking shape. Even as further negotiations and digitalization continue, African countries are in the process of opening their markets under the agreement, starting with a reduction of tariffs on imported goods. Article 3 of the agreement highlights rights objectives that include creating a single market for goods and services facilitated by the movement of persons. So it's right around this time, 63 years ago, that it happened. And I think that we should be looking at a time where it can actually happen. Let it be that at home is where you should be able to move and trade freely. Let it be at home is where you'll be able to get the most in terms of benefits from one country to the next. Even when you have regional bodies, let things like trade and economies and travel and finance surpass those boundaries. And I think it's, commemorative that we're at that point now. Right around this time, 63 years ago, is when the calls for African unity were made. And I think it's around this time that we continue to remember it is of great benefit to the continent. If countries come together, sharing their expertise, allowing for cross-border trade, reducing tariffs so that you can benefit at home before you have to then go and compete on this bullish global market. At least find some comfort at home. And I think that was the thrust of this initial conversation many, many years ago, right around this time that, this is actually what we should be looking at. It's done in other parts of the world and they're able to survive and survive well. The buddy-buddy relationship between nations on the other side of the pond works very well for them. Why can't we do it here on the continent? So hopefully the trade area will be something that doesn't die on paper in terms of policy, but that it will be implemented and that countries can benefit from it in the coming years.
Of interest, since you're talking about trade, in the Business Daily,
yes,
the back page, just a mention.
Yeah.
ECOWAS, that's an economic body.
Yes.
In West Africa.
Yeah.
They suspended Mali over the second coup in months.
Yes.
West Africa, let me just read it. West African leaders suspended Mali from the Economic Community of West African States in an extraordinary summit Sunday, but stopped short of reimposing sanctions after a second military coup in 9 months. 9 months.
Yep.
Coup, 9 months, another coup. Okay? This particular coup had sparked up deep concerns over the stability of the volatile Sahel region and warnings of fresh economic penalties. 10 regions heads of the state and 3 foreign ministers attended the summit. I have to ask, when you suspend them,
yes,
are you suspending and hoping, or these activities and hoping to punish the coup leaders, and who actually suffers?
Of course, the people suffer, but then the assumption is that if you put pressure on the people and that it becomes really difficult for them to operate, that the state and those then in positions of leadership, government and authority will do something to iron out the situation.
Really?
That it is, how they say, look, if somebody is bothering you, you arrest them. It is not the person that you have arrested that you're putting pressure on. They will put pressure on their family members, right, to do something. And so it gets out. But somebody suffers. And that's the thing, that you put pressure. What is it? When you look at structural adjustment programs, when you look at sanctions, like for example, if you have a regime in place who is doing something that certain other bodies do not like, what do? You impose sanctions. You make it difficult for the people within the country because that's essentially what it is. You're making it very difficult for people to travel. You're making it very difficult for people to trade. You're making it extremely difficult for people to live in their own country as a result of those sanctions. So then what are you hoping for? A lifting of those sanctions so that things can go back to normal. What do I need to do to lift those sanctions? I then need to fall in line and behave. Same thing here. We are part of the economies of West African states. Now, according to the commission, you're misbehaving. The people who will suffer are those who are trying to travel around West Africa, are those who are doing business around West Africa, and they originate from Mali. They will not be allowed to do so. So they put pressure on the state. Guess what? You now behave yourselves and stop cooing.
And it works, does it?
Yes. Pressure works. It does. It does.
Actually, it does. But there is a ruling, a thinking along those lines, that has interesting economic, should we say, discomforts.
Yeah.
But it is something that was brought about by the US, and they focused it not so much on a country, but on specific leaders.
On specific leaders, yes, exactly. Not being able to travel, such things.
Oh, they don't just leave it there.
Yeah.
You and your family.
You and your family cannot travel.
Yes.
Okay. We're getting round about to 8 o'clock. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. The next conversation is one you want to have. You will be able to talk to the police service directly. How will you be able to lay your claims and complaints? Who will you be able to talk to? We're going to have that conversation this morning in a short while. As we get into it, it's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Having a mask and an invitation card are some of the requirements that Kenyans need to have as they access the Jomo Kenyatta International Stadium in Kisumu County for Madaraka Day celebrations. The stadium will hold a capacity of 3,000 Kenyans for the celebrations as a measure to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The celebrations will be led by President Uhuru Kenyatta, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, among other dignitaries. Here are some of the remarks of Kisumu residents ahead of the 58th Madaraka Day celebrations.
He promised all Kenyans that they'll feel the presence of his government, and I would say that as Kisumu we are happy so far with what the president has launched.
It's long we've been left. The president has not been very close to us, but actually we showed him that we own him also, and he also owns us. So we are happy.
Tumefurahia kwa development ambaye tumeona jana. President alikuwa karibu na sisi, vile alikuwa Siaya, tumeona mabadiliko mingi.
I'm so much flabbergasted to have this chance to come here. I'm very, very happy to meet our president today and Baba. I'm so much happy with handshake.
Also, ODM leader Raila Odinga says he's still strong and confident of emerging victorious in the 2022 general elections. During an interview with the local radio station in Luo dialect, Raila says he still has one shot to indicate the guarantee of victory in the election, unlike other options. Despite initially saying he wouldn't run for president and that his candidacy would depend only on the success of the BBI, Raila, who is also President Uhuru Kenyatta's ally in the handshake agreement, has told Nyanza residents that he'll be in the ballot paper. His statement comes just months after his brother Oburu Oginga said ODM leaders were confident that Kenyatta's alliance with Odinga would achieve Raila's ambition. Kikuyu Council of Elders and Kiama plan are set actually to cleanse the Mukure wa Nyagathanga shrine after allegedly being violated by the anointing of National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi as the Mount Kenya spokesman. This comes as 7 Mount Kenya governors plan to meet later in the week near Nanyuki for a major announcement on the political developments in the mountain region that look like the start of the split of the Gema political leadership. Also, the Kenya National Highway Authority has extended the closure of a section of Uhuru Highway for 3 more days to allow for the construction of the Nairobi Expressway. The authority says that it will open up the Nyayo Stadium roundabout tomorrow. 5 Migori MCAs who are members of the County Public Investment and Accounts Committee have vowed to sue Assembly Speaker Boaz Okoth for their unlawful removal from the committee. Led by Muhuru MCA Hevron Maira, the MCAs claimed they were told that they were no longer members of the committee while they were on official duty in Kisumu investigating crucial matters raised by the Auditor General in the 2017-2018 report that was presented to us. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
It's looking pretty good this morning, guys. It is a holiday, so we don't expect too much in terms of madness on the roads today. Coming out of Mombasa Road, it's looking pretty good getting out into the city centre without too much of a headache. If you indeed are going anywhere, you shouldn't be on the roads for too long. The construction does continue on most of the major highways and connecting to the expressway, and because of that, things may slow down a little bit, but you're being asked to be extremely careful regardless, because accidents can still happen, guys. The bypasses are looking like a day trip because you can get through in minutes, no problem. Traffic is flowing very smoothly. So it's a word of caution and a word for the wise. Be very careful, even as the roads are open and freeing and flowing freely. There is still a risk of getting stuck via accident, so please do not do that. Anything that you see we should know about? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This Madaraka Day, the only way to start your day. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's The Situation Room. Ndruoko and C.T. Muga with you this morning. Eric is still off on that sojourn, trying to get this one card. Hopefully, when he comes back, he will have evidence of the same. If not, we might have to boot him back to where it is that he went to. Where are you tuned in from around the country? 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret. Mombasa, you're tuned in on, yes, we said that already, Malindi on 97.9, Nyeri on 90.9, and Kisumu, where a lot of action is taking place this morning, 102.5. Our live streams are up, SpiceFM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And right now, from 8 o'clock, KTN Home. Our audience, Karibuni Sana, thank you for joining us this morning as we get into conversations. Today, finally, we're talking to the police service directly. But before we get into that, Citi's going to set the pace with today's proverb.
When a needle falls into a deep well, many people will look into the well, but few will be ready to go down after it.
Okay. A needle has fallen. We're looking for the needle.
Mm-hmm. Needle, not the biggest of objects.
Mm-mm. Now it's in water.
Not just
okay, we're
water.
assuming there's water in the well.
Well,
yeah.
I think the well and its depth is the issue here.
Okay.
Water is a secondary consideration. Yes.
Okay.
Now think of the size of the needle in a well. The question that comes to mind, why would I want to
Why
look
would
for
I
it?
even want to look for it? Lost cause.
Aha. There we get into the heart of the matter. And yet, when you have the needle at hand, it is a useful object to have.
It is. Are you going to fly your flag for us this Madoraka Day after
Well,
all?
most certainly.
The toing and froing of the flag continues.
Yes, this 58th celebration will not occur again.
So, if you did not have an opportunity to catch CT toing and froing in a rhythmic fashion, the flag on this Madaraka Day, there you go for our audience on KTN Home. Savor it. It only comes but once. All right. Today, we're having a conversation with the National Police Service. Okay? Specifically, we are looking at the role of the Internal Affairs Unit in ensuring accountability in the National Police Service. And joining us this morning is George Nyali. George Nyali is the head of training at the Internal Affairs Unit, the National Police Service, joining us on the line this morning. And George, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm glad to be on SpiceFM this morning.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
It's a public holiday and it's Madaraka Day. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think it's very interesting that you choose to be with us this morning talking about roles and how you can ensure accountability. One of the big issues that we've often had to discuss. And thanks for joining us. And as we go into this and delve into it deeply, I'm glad that you could join us. So it's Ndu Oko and Siti Muga in the studio and Wanjiro Gikonyo.
Yes, creeping in.
Creeping in
at this time. Yes.
Right on time.
Right on time.
Yes.
I'm going to find a way to connect. There you go, Wanjiru. How are you?
Very well.
Good. You're all right?
I'm doing well.
I'm glad you've been able to join us. Just as we were, starting this off. So George Nyali is the head of training, Internal Affairs Unit, National Police Service. And we're talking today about their role in ensuring accountability for the National Police Service. Right, George? Have I gotten it right so far?
You're very right.
Okay, so like I said, it's Madaraka Day, but you're choosing to have this very important conversation with us today, and we thank you for that. So let's get right into it this morning, George. Accountability in the police service as it stands out right now as a sore thumb. From your point of view, what does that mean?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you so much. And on behalf of the National Police Service, I want to appreciate Spice Radio FM for giving us this chance to engage with the members of the public and inform them that we now have a fully fledged oversight institution within the National Police Service that basically handles complaints against police officers. As you so said, it's a holiday. And in Nairobi, it's a cold one, given that the weather is so cold out there. But we are happy to be here today because we believe that many members of the public are in their houses, or at least we have time to watch TV and listen to SpiceFM. And with that, we shall be able to engage them and just let them know that we have a National Police Service that is listening to them, and that there's an oversight institution that is there full-time 24/7 to ensure that they receive complaints and then take action against police officers who are found culpable of misconduct.
Okay. In terms of right. So, George, in terms of accountability of the police service, what does that entail?
Accountability entails police officers working within the whims of the law. Police officers have been trained, and we believe they are professional. They know what to do and when to do it. And as they conduct the activities, they must always remember that they do it within the purview of the laws of Kenya. So, yeah.
So we've heard about the Internal Affairs Unit. I must be honest, when we heard about Internal Affairs, it's from movies that I've watched, right? And Internal Affairs doing investigations on rogue police officers, this kind of thing, seeing if you've been out, working outside the law, as it were. And then, of course, playing an oversight role then when it comes to the conduct of police officers within the force or within the service. Does that apply in totality here as well? We never hear about this unit, though, I must tell you, George. We never really hear about this unit and its operations. So I guess it's a good thing today. But are we looking at the same thing? Oversight within the service to make sure that everybody is coloring within the lines?
Okay, maybe before I even answer that question, I should go back slightly to give you an overview of what Internal Affairs Unit entails.
Yes, please.
And I must say that there has been many efforts to reform the police. But my interest goes back to 2007-2008 post-election violence. This is when the police was accused of various misconduct and malpractices, including impunity, excessive use of force, brutality, disregard for human rights, abuse of due process, corruption, you can name them. Now, after the 2007-2008 post-election violence, it triggered comprehensive reform that were constitutional, legal, policy, and institutional. If we can remember, there was a national task force on police reform that was led by Honorable Retired Justice Philip Brantley. Now, this task force was tasked to develop a roadmap for police reform. And so it came up with a raft of recommendations. Actually, there were around about 200 of them. But I just wish to talk about the two that are very critical for the establishment of the Internal Affairs Unit. So one of the recommendations by Philip Brantley was to establish a national police service that was under one command of the Inspector General. Now, this was an improvement or deviation from the previous Kenya Police Force and the Administration Police Force that we used to have. So we now moved to a service. So in the Constitution, these changes were provided for under Article 243, which talks about establishment of National Police Service. Article 244, which actually talks about the objects and functions of the police. And then Article 245, which talks about the command of the National Police Service. Article 246, now which talks about the establishment of the National Police Service Commission. Now, Article 244, which stipulates the functions and the objects of the National Police Service, is one key article that now leads to the establishment of Internal Affairs Unit. Looking at that article, if I may just take us through what it talks about, is that it says police service, the National Police Service should strive for the highest standards of professionalism and discipline among its members. It should also prevent corruption and promote and practice transparency and accountability. The police service should comply with the constitutional standards of human rights and fundamental freedom. The National Police Service is supposed to train staff to the highest possible standards of competence and integrity, and to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms and dignity. And finally, it's supposed to foster and promote relationships with the broader public. Now, this is where Internal Affairs draws its mandate. It's established to look into this, ensure that the police works within the wings of the provisions of the Constitution. Now, secondly, there's another recommendation by the task force that recommended the introduction of both internal and external oversight of the police. Now, this led to the establishment of Internal Affairs Unit, which is a subset, actually an oversight arm of the National Police Service. This comprises of police service, police officers only. And then we have the external oversight, which is independent policing oversight authority that consists of members of the public. Now, what informed the establishment of the two is that there was mistrust between members of the public and the police. And you remember the narrative that the police cannot investigate their own. So we had to have an external oversight as an option for those members of the public who are uncomfortable reporting complaints for investigation by police officers. So what we are...
I want to interrupt you briefly, because what you're saying, I find it extremely interesting, because but I want to follow up with it by, first of all, setting a certain background. Tell me, I'm speaking as a layman who doesn't understand this thing completely. I know who the police are, but you mentioned something, Mr. Nyali, about their training. Just could you walk us and our audience through the training? What are police men and women trained in? Just they're trained in, okay, we all know they're trained how to hold and shoot a gun. That one we get, okay? But beyond the gun, what else are they trained in?
Okay. First of all, we have various training for police officers.
Yes.
we have basic recruit course.
Yes.
Where these are newly recruited people who are supposed to be trained and transformed into police officers.
Yes.
Now, in the basic training, this cadre of officers are trained about human rights. They are trained about the laws.
Yes.
All relevant laws in the Republic of Kenya, because as you know, police officers are the custodians of the law. They are law enforcers. So they must be aware of the laws, understand them, and be able to practice them. So issues of laws are very critical during this training. Human rights. They are trained on how to handle firearms. They are trained on how to quell violence and riots. They are trained on how to arrest people. They are trained on how to fight crime. Okay, I really don't have the whole curriculum.
Oh, no. An overview is sufficient. Just an overview of the areas in which they're trained. And there's a reason why I'm asking for this overview, Mr. Nyali. Because when we are talking about oversight, we are talking about something that all people who belong to the police force have been trained in and they understand. And so when there's oversight, it's oversight over something that isn't new to them. But before we get there, I want to ask the question, how often do police men and women go for refresher courses? How often are they called back in to be retrained so that they don't forget what it is that they were initially trained when they were cadets?
Okay, we have a provision in the service standing orders that police officers are supposed to be regularly trained to refresh themselves.
Yes.
We always have our police officers get back to our training institutions for refresher.
How regular is this?
This should be at least, we must have a refresher course annually.
Okay.
Yes.
For all people who belong to the police force?
Yes, all officers who belong to the National Police Service are supposed to be trained at least once.
Okay.
But I want to put a rider that we are talking about over 120 police officers. So issues of logistics.
120,000 or 120?
120.
Okay.
120,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we are talking about issues of logistics, where we can't have everybody go to the training institutions at once. But we have our own training that we hold in our other training facilities within the regions where our officers can be retrained and refreshed about police duty.
Okay. Now, people who belong to, say, the unit that you are now in, what are you trained in? Are you all police officers? Are you civilians? What is the background?
Internal Affairs unit comprises of police officers.
Okay.
These are basically competent and qualified investigators. They are drawn from all services under the National Police Service. We have officers from Kenya Police Service, Administration Police Service, and the DCI. Now, before these officers qualify to come and serve in Internal Affairs unit, they must apply. And the applications and interviews are very competitive. So those who qualify, given the kind of qualifications that we advertise, once they qualify, they are taken to the National Police Service Commission for vetting.
Okay.
So that at the end of the day, we get officers who are qualified, officers of integrity, officers that do not have dark spots in their service history.
What is your if you were looking at it from a unit perspective right now? We know that you are operating from an oversight position, but what is your assessment of the police service and the way it is operating currently in terms of conduct?
First of all, I want to say that there has been a huge of improvement in the way police conduct themselves. It's it's in a way that, okay, first of all, members of the public are aware of their rights, so they are able to point out where police officers are doing wrong. And that should be attributed to the many cases that we have had of late, where police officers are being mentioned that they have done these other things against the law. But so far, with that kind of awareness by members of the public, and also there's proper communication where this information can reach the media, and then people get to know what's happening and what the police are doing. I think that's why we get these many complaints. But to be honest, the police have really tried to do their best, and they are doing that knowing that we have a big brother in the house looking at what we are doing. So we even have the statistics on how they have the improvement that we have noted over time, and we can say that the police are trying to do their best to serve Kenyans in the right way.
Okay. I'm sure we have other questions for you, definitely, and it's starting to brew now. George Nyeri is the head of training, Internal Affairs Unit's National Police Service, and we're looking into just basically how your unit works to make sure that the conduct of police is in comfortable situations. We're going to take a break shortly, but before then, I want to tell you a little bit about Samsung and how they're making sure all of us are awesome. What do you think awesome is? What comes to mind? Awesome could be a skill, it could be a craft, and could be a piece of technology that blows your mind away. And that's what Samsung is well known for. It's tech sphere and its innovation, its competitiveness. And it's the new A-series phones that we're looking at today that prove that not just for the high-end phones, but awesome is for everyone. According to you, what makes a phone awesome? We'd like to hear from you today. You can call or text on 40127 or send us a message on social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. What is awesome? Let's look quickly at the first phone in this series that we're looking at today. The Galaxy A3 is the entry level for the Samsung Galaxy A series range. Don't be fooled, however. The phone still comes loaded with awesome features, making it the most impressive choice in its class. So, design, all new design, minimal front camera housing, enhanced durability, as well as brilliant colors, a decreased damage rate in drop tests, vivid screen, and also we are looking at quad camera setup, 64 MP high resolution camera. The macro camera shoots with clarity and quality and ultra wide at the same time, and it's got great power saving. It comes with a Samsung Care Plus warranty, which covers screen repair as well as other hardware repairs using genuine Samsung parts. Definitely part of the awesome series with Samsung. Don't forget, you can talk to us on our social media pages, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter about what you think awesome means with Samsung. It's 23 minutes to 9 o'clock.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well. No, I'm to Jeshi Lokop.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. the weather with Spice FM.
Okay, Nairobi, light rain in some parts this morning, 15 degrees, lows of 14 today, highs of 24. Looking at light rain in Nyeri at 14, highs of 22. We'll see highs of 25 in Nakuru. It's partly sunny at 15. It's sunny at 15 in Eldoret as well, highs of 25. Highs of 29 in Kisumu, mostly sunny at 21. 21 is also what it is in Kakamega, and it's mostly sunny. Highs of 29. We'll see highs of 30 in Mombasa, where it's raining in some parts at 28. It's also raining in some parts of Malindi at 28, with highs of 30 and lows of 25. Light rain at 25 in Kampala, highs of 27 and lows of 18. It's raining in Dar es Salaam at 24, highs of 29 and lows of 22. Johannesburg is a chilly morning combined with rain at 6, highs of 13 and lows of 2, and mostly clear conditions in Lagos now at 27, highs of 32 and lows of 26, and mostly cloudy in Kinshasa at 24 with highs of 33, and it'll come down to lows of 23.
Spice FM, Malindi. "24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Not too much of that this morning. We're looking at it coming off Mombasa Road, and we haven't had any issues with that so far. I think folks who are traveling in any which direction are finding it a good day to be on the roads today. Also, there's a temptation to go a lot faster than you should. Please don't, because we don't want any accident situations. The bypass is looking pretty good. A nice day to be out for a drive is what some folks are telling us this morning, while being careful as well. Not your normal weekday traffic with a holiday right in the middle of the week, but all calls to be just as careful as though it were. Talk to us just in case anything does pop up at you. Spice FMKE is how you can get in touch with us on Twitter. Text 40127.
There are so many people peddling what is false, and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Afande hii umbo yako iko na pembe.
Hii ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, and we're having a big conversation this morning with the Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service. And in the studio today are guest host Wanjiro Gikonyo, Siti Muga, and Ndu Oko. George Nyali is the head of training at the Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service, and we're looking at the oversight role that the unit plays to make sure that the conduct of police officers is always in check. And as we went to the break, George, you told us that from where you are sitting, the service has really tried and they've done a good job in terms of keeping their conduct up to par, up to scratch. And so we'll continue with that conversation this morning.
Yes, I think, George, good morning and good to engage. Matters you're in training, I think you also have a big role in PR because you're giving us a very rosy picture when, the reality out there or the statistics and the sense out there is a bit different. So, for instance, the police service has been number one on the corruption list for several years, for many years. And unless that improved in 2020, the last check in 2019, police service was still toweling at the top of that list. The other thing is that we see during recruitment, there is still a tussle between the administration side and the national police side. So maybe you can tell us really what's happening and how this affects your ability to manage police officers. If you can't agree on who recruits them, then what are the internal conflicts in terms of who manages them? And then lastly, I understand that internal affairs is grossly underfunded, that even access to computers is a challenge. So that maybe in theory there is a very good manual, but are you really able to implement when you're talking about the size and the scope of the problem that you're dealing with?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I want us to confine ourselves on issues of oversight. Administrative issues can well be handled by the National Police Service Commission, especially in the areas of recruitment, deployment. It can better be placed there and they can address that issue properly. Mine is simply about oversight and accountability for the National Police Service.
Are you saying administration does not affect how you do your oversight, or is that a sensitive area you'd rather not address?
Yeah, because I do not have enough information about recruitment and how police officers are supposed to be deployed. But of course, definitely, if there's a problem in that area, it also tends to affect the performance of the National Police Service. But I wouldn't wish to address that at this moment. Yes. I wish to confine myself on issues of oversight and accountability for the police.
But then maybe on the issue of corruption, the police service topping in terms of corruption, where does your department come in and what's not working? In terms of the resources you need to do your work, does the internal affairs have adequate resources?
Okay, first of all, on issues of corruption, we are looking at a police service that has had problems since time immemorial, since the colonial times. Our officers have always been on the limelight, being watched by everybody. Everything they do is recorded, is registered, and it's shared. So basically what we are saying here is that the public is able to see details on everything that the police do. The police are the people that we find on our roads controlling traffic and doing all that. So in case a bad police officer gets involved in picking a bribe from a motorist or a member of the public, that one will be seen by everybody. And that actually translates to the figures that we see and the numbers, the positions that we take nationally as being the most corrupt. Truth be said, we have corrupt officers in the National Police Service. And our duty is to ensure that such kind of officers are identified and rooted out of the service so that we can try to limit or have the best serving officers in the Republic of Kenya.
George, is that done?
So the issue, yes.
I have to ask you, is it done? If you receive reports of police officers having gone rogue, for example, or misbehaving, what is done? Because I can tell you from this side, the impression being given is that nothing really is done. If you are aware that there are those who are operating in misconduct, that the most that would happen is a slap on the wrist or a transfer maybe to another area. But I think it would be very interesting to know what the process is. Now this is directly involving your unit. What happens if I call in and report and I say, look, I'm seeing evidence of bribes happening on wherever today, and you're able to ascertain that this misconduct is actually taking place? What happens in that case? Are we looking at prosecutorial matters arising or a proverbial slap on the wrist?
Okay, we are talking about prosecutorial. If the matter borders on criminality, the officer has to be prosecuted. But this is what I would wish to share with the members of the public, that they should not shy off from reporting these rogue police officers. this is the reason Internal Affairs Unit exists. I will be sharing our contacts and how members of the public can report police officers who are involved in misconduct. But generally what I want to tell members of the public is that don't die with your problem. Make sure you report rogue police officers to us so that we can help each other to get the best police service in this country.
George, and isn't it the truth that Kenyans underreport because Kenyans don't trust the police, and so they prefer to suffer with the problem they have, and reporting is possibly going down rather than going up? And then I also am waiting for the answer on resources. How will you conduct your good work, because I believe it's really important work, without the necessary resources? Or maybe now the Internal Affairs has all the money it needs and doesn't need to be included an increase from the budget allocation.
Okay, the issue of resources. No single government entity can say that it has adequate or enough resources. Resources are always limited. IAU suffers lack of enough resources, just like any other department or unit within the National Police Service. So we make use of the little that is available, and I must say that the Inspector General has been very forthright to assist Internal Affairs Unit deliver on its mandate. We have shared the little that is available, but basically I can say that we can't say we have enough, and that's why probably our services have not trickled down to many areas that we are supposed to reach.
George, an ideal situation where you are adequately funded and you're able to function as you like, what would that look like? What would you need to have in order to be able to actually carry out this mandate to its fullest?
Okay, with enough resources. Let me use the word enough resources.
Yes, resources are good.
The unit is supposed to devolve its services to all counties in this country. Currently, as we speak, we have only devolved to 4 regions of the country. That's Kisumu, Mombasa, Nakuru, and Nyeri, and then Nairobi. So due to lack of resources, we have been limited. We can't expand our services closer to the members of the public, to the county that's required. We are looking at a unit that is has automobiles, the unit that is supposed to respond quickly, the unit that has specialized trained officers who can respond to various different kinds of police misconduct. A fully funded unit is supposed to reflect what the National Police Service ideally should look like.
So funds are needed. And then my favorite aspect, devolution. Because the National Police Service Act anticipates the devolution of the policing function. It anticipates the creation, and I know you don't want to get drawn into policy, of the County Policing Authority. It anticipates the creation of community policing units that are now where the community interacts with the police. This has not happened. There is a lack of political will. From our work, we have found it's a lack of political will, lack of resources, also lack of political will. I think there is a fear that if you create these structures and they are very vibrant, the power will shift. So to what extent do you think it's vital to operationalize the National Police Service Act fully so that communities at the local level are working, more, interacting stronger in a better way with the police and feeding into the county level policing authority?
Yes, Kenya is a country of respectable people who deserve the best. And when I say people who deserve the best, I also mean that they should receive the best police services. My observation is that you get what you want. And if you do not give enough resources, you get services that are not up to date. You get meager services. And as we stand here right now, what I'm seeing is that if resources can be available, then police will be able to devolve services. Not just the police, but internal affairs unit will be able to devolve its services to the members of the public, deal with them up to the county level and even beyond. Because what we want is that we must be all over the country watching on how police officers are conducting their business.
Maybe we are too preoccupied with what the police don't do, and we forget that what they need to be able to give us the services. So corruption, again, like we were saying in the issue that debt is a symptom, corruption could also be a symptom
of a problem. CT asks this question often, even when we're taking a dig at the police, George. And one of the things that he says often, and I'm going to just bring this in to ask the next question, is that are we really looking at how much police officers are compensated in this country to enable them to do their job? Now, if you're looking at issues of conduct on an internal basis, how do the two correlate? Because if you're asking a police officer to behave him or herself in a certain manner, are you looking at the factors that could essentially influence behavior? Because as a human being, forget about the labels of police officer, this or that. If things that I need for basic survival are not available, it will definitely impact my conduct in whatever sphere of life I am in. Now, here we are having individuals tasked with security and the maintenance of law and order and etc. And if their basic needs are not being taken care of in terms of compensation, it will have an effect on those that you're looking at in terms of conduct. Have you seen a correlation between the two?
Okay. That's a possible question?
Yes.
Yeah, fine. Now, one thing that I also observe is that it can be so frustrating to supervise or oversight a police that is a bit demotivated. Talking about the basics is also key, because when police officers are motivated, they tend to reflect what they're enjoying towards their services. So it would be paramount that those basic necessities, like housing for the police, like having police stations that are modern, and the cells that are okay to hold members of the public, all those things that make their work easier, that can be so good, and it can really motivate police officers to perform well. There's a correlation between being motivated and working against the laws that guide our services.
George, what about...
So I agree with you.
Sorry.
When it comes to motivation.
What about culture? Because we've seen the culture of police, that drives their conduct has come into the limelight. Because, of course, we thought we only have problems with police in Kenya, police brutality, harassment, abuse of power. But we've seen, for instance, in the United States, equally very bad culture where you might say that police are better remunerated, better supported. So whereas, yes, we agree police need to be supported, there needs to be funding for the institutions of the police. What about the culture, this culture of impunity? Because our police service is rooted, like you said, it has a colonial history, and their exercise of power is rooted in that. The relationship between police and the citizen is one that's very coercive. Has enough been done to stop this?
Okay, thank you. Talking about culture, we are not just looking at the police. We also need to look at members of the public. Now, the police, being the custodians of the law, may not be readily acceptable by members of the public, because the public look at the police as a danger, as a people who are fault-finding, who are fault-finding. So, because generally humans do not love the law. They feel confined. They feel their freedom is being taken away. That's natural, each one of us. And that's why the world over, police officers have issues with members of the public. The issues may not be impunity per se, but that police officers work under very difficult circumstances. trying to enforce a law that is not loved by the very people they are supposed to oversight in terms of the law. So coming back to Kenya, members of the public have a role to play to ensure that we get proper and good services from the police. Let members of the public cooperate with the police. When they are arrested, they should go to the station. They should accept to be taken through due process. They should not try to attempt to bribe the police. Yeah, let them accept to be taken to court. If you are found with a traffic offense, please accept that indeed you are on the wrong and accept to follow due process until you are fined and then released. So talking of culture, the police, for having been working under very difficult circumstances, seeing members of the public as their enemies, and the members of the public vice versa, seeing the police as fault finders who just want to make their lives difficult. We can see a development of a culture between the two that needs to be bridged so that we can have people who work to support each other so that police services can be enjoyed by all of us.
Looking at an internal issue now, even with the Internal Affairs Unit, do members of the service see you as the unit as a deterrent then from improper conduct, or do they recognize it? And I think it would be absolutely important, because we look at other places where there's an Internal Affairs Unit and nobody wants to get in trouble, so they behave, essentially. Do they see you as a force to be reckoned with?
Exactly, that's how they see us. But unfortunately, some of them tend to fear. And that's what we want to remove from their minds. They should not fear the unit. Instead, they should see a unit as an institution that is out there to assist them deliver on their mandate.
Actually, the problem isn't even the police unit in my mind, or the police force, or the police service and the citizenry. It is the way we as Kenyans relate to the government. You see, the government is this amorphous body that we feel has not pleasant oversight, but general oversight. And it's like a big prefect who is always looking to find fault with you. So if you have the unfortunate position of being in the police force and you're supposed to enforce these laws, it's not what you're doing. It's who you represent. That is actually the problem. So anything that is deemed negative within the government, unfortunately, the heavy brunt of it will fall on the police force. Now, if you come up with that mindset and then you have an internal affairs, you then have not a unit that is considered to be supportive, but a fault-finding unit. And yet, I don't think the internal affairs was actually set to be a fault-finding unit. It's supposed to be a unit that actually supports the activity to ensure that the activity of the police force are what they're supposed to be. But this isn't a mindset of the police. It's a mindset we have as Kenyans. It is how we relate to authority. And unfortunately, you in the police force have the unfortunate job of enforcing this authority. So the heavy burden of fault will be on your shoulders.
Yeah, Siti, I agree with you, because you're talking about centralized power.
Yes.
And centralized power that's not very accountable, because the checks and balances don't work. Now, that's the colonial model. It's a top-down control, command structure, and we are trying to then change that into a democratized, accountable, decentralized power structure.
And yet the leadership actually likes that system.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it serves, and there's economic benefits, there's prestige of being known that you're the... So I think the challenge we are facing with the implementation of the Constitution is, how do we do a culture change so that we have very good plans and we have good people who are running departments and have a vision for this democratized, accountable police force, but we are stuck in this old model. And this is happening also with the devolution of maybe even county governance. That's where our constitution got stuck. And then Kenyans don't fully own it. So I think the question is, how do we unlock? Because the issue you mentioned, George, as you were speaking, and you talked about the need for the communities to cooperate with the police, to work with the police, the county police authority and the community policing structure has civilian oversight structures at the very, very local level that would work with the police station so that it can even be reporting and tracking reporting, doing the sensitization. So there's a whole vision. But even the implementation of that fell into competition, whether it should be under the administration arm, whether it should be under the police, this other formal police service arm, it fell into contention and has not been funded, has not been rolled out. So our democratic process is stuck. And we possibly need to work together to acknowledge we've come some way. There is some good things, but if we don't safeguard those, we'll lose them.
The police was actually caught in the middle here.
Caught in the middle of it, and you still have to continue. And this is the thing, caught in the middle of all of these things spinning at the same time, and then must still do this job that you've been mandated to do.
Yeah, they're being asked to juggle. And half the time they're juggling things that are actually not under their purview or things they have no control over. Not really. Yes.
Change management.
Yes.
How do we do change management with leaders who don't want change management? Who brings it? Revolution? Is it maandamano?
Actually, the fact that we have internal affairs is revolutionary.
I think so.
When it is clear that there's a need for the police to police themselves or to have oversight over the activities, and you actually set up a unit that actually does that, it's a huge step forward.
Absolutely.
So maybe internal affairs needs to work closer with civil society to advocate for these changes. Civil society, and also there's parts and there's leaders, officials, even within the other arms of the police. So maybe there's need now to work across the sectors to stop saying that civil society, they're always fault
and we are on this side.
And we're on this side. Because we're not going to win.
Actually, civil society
and media
can be a useful ally, as can the media. Be a useful ally to the activities that you're involved in, Mr. Nyali.
Mr. Nyali, as we are wrapping things up, and I think you mentioned that there's a contact that folks can get in touch with you, and I think it would be important to give that information now as we come to the end of this conversation. For now, I think we've barely scratched the surface of a lot that is needed right now. And I mean, it's clear that it's coming out now that you don't need to work alone, but that there are other sectors of society that can work with you. But before we get to those future conversations, how about you tell us how Kenyans can get in touch for issues that they might have?
Okay, thank you. Just to say something about working with civil society, I must say that Internal Affairs Unit is working very closely with the civil society. We are working with institutions like Transparency International. We are working with the Independent Medical Legal Unit. We are working with the International Justice Mission. We are working with all these other Kenya National Human Rights Commission. We work together to ensure that members of the public are given due services. So about getting to us, members of the public can visit our offices personally. Our offices, head office is at the KCB Towers, Upper Hill. We are based on the 16th up to the 19th floor.
Okay.
Our address, probably I can give you the address. You can also find all this information in our website, www.iau.go.ke. Yeah, but currently our box number at the head office is 1880-00200 Nairobi. Our email address is iau@nationalpolice.go.ke. We are on Twitter. You can find us at National NPS Official -KE. We also have anonymous reporting information system where members of the public who wish not to be identified or identify themselves, like the whistleblowers, can report complaints. It's called ARI. We use the USSD code, which is *6 #83#. You can also send your complaint through an SMS 40683. We also have a toll-free line where members of the public can report their complaint at 0800721230. We have a WhatsApp line where members of the public can send their videos or pictures of police officers who are found in misconduct.
Right.
On number 07587299917.
Thank you very much, George Nyali, for joining us in the conversation this morning. And like we said, just scratch the surface, and there are many more conversations about this that can be had in terms of spreading that information. George Nyali is the head of training, Internal Affairs Unit, the National Police Service. Thank you for joining us in the Situation Room this morning. Asante sana.
Thank you.
The conversation continues. Thank you to our audience on KTN Home for joining us this morning. It does continue on SpiceFM around the country where you're tuned in. 94.4 Nairobi, and we're going to point to 102.5 in Kisumu today. The conversation continues. So even as you get off KTN Home, continue with us on that conversation on SpiceFM, and we'll connect again with you tomorrow. For now, it is 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Madaraka Day celebrations have kicked off at Jomo Kenyatta International Stadium in Kisumu County with songs of entertainment from different artists. Only 3,000 Kenyans have been allowed to access the stadium for the celebrations. President Uhuru Kenyatta and other dignitaries shall arrive at the stadium anytime from now. Here are some of the residents of Kisumu who are in attendance of the event.
He promised all Kenyans that they'll feel the presence of his government, and I would say that as Kisumu we are happy so far with what the president has launched.
It's long we've been left. The president has not been very close to us, but actually we showed him that we own him also, and he also owns us. So we are happy.
Tumefurahia kwa development ambaye tumeona jana. President alikuwa karibu na sisi, vile alikuwa Siaya. Tumeona mabadiliko mingi.
I'm so much flabbergasted to have this chance to come here. I'm very, very happy to meet our president today and Baba. I'm so much happy with handshake.
The fruits of the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga continue to be witnessed, mainly due to the launch of various projects in the Nyanza region. President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday commissioned the launch of Kenya Shipyards Limited in Kisumu, which aims at establishing and growing the country's shipbuilding industry. Accompanied by Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye, Kenyatta said KSL, in collaboration with KDF, would ensure all ships were in good condition. The president also inaugurated the Kisumu port, saying it would strengthen trade ties between Kenya and other countries.
Na mimi najua ya kwamba hii port pia itaimarisha uhusiano wetu kama nchi za Afrika Mashariki, itaimarisha uhusiano ya wananchi wetu, tuwe wananchi wa Afrika Mashariki kwa sababu matembezi pia yatakuwa rahisi, na hiyo ndio tuataka.
Meanwhile, Uhuru has overturned a court order asking him to suspend plans to transfer the meat factory KMC to the Ministry of Defense. He says he has never violated the law, so he won't be intimidated by the orders.
Kwa nini jeshi hata mnaenda mpaka kotini kusema? Kwani mnafikiria wanajeshi sio wa Kenya? Mkono ambao unabeba bunduki una uwezo pia wa kubeba jembe, na ni jukumu letu kutumia nafasi zote ambazo tuko nazo kujenga taifa letu. Jameni, alafu nasikia wananchi hapa wakiwa wananchi viongozi. Mtateta shauri yenu, lakini kazi tutafanya.
KDF has been tasked with overseeing KMC and has been ordered to pay pastoralists 3 days after they deliver meat. Elsewhere, the counting of parliamentary and local election votes in Somaliland nation continues after the operation was carried out under tight security. More than 1 million Somaliland's 4 million people were registered to vote in the elections, which were delayed with the parliamentary elections, which had been held more than a decade late. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
All right, some traffic a little bit, just a tad on Mombasa Road this morning, headed out towards the city. But this is right around General Motors where the road narrows, right? As more and more folks have gotten up, heading out to do a little bit of business that they can do on this day. That's where we see some traffic, but nothing mind-blowing, guys. You'll be able to get in, out, and about without too much of a hiccup or a headache. The bypass is looking free as air today, headed in and out of the city, and then further outbound of the city as well. Not much of an issue whatsoever. Okay, so police carrying out some of their spot checks this morning. Call them what you like, but that's what's going on. But it's not slowing down traffic anywhere. All right, so what we're asking for is to be extremely careful today as you're out and about, because the roads are clear, and of course there is the temptation to speed things up. So please be very, very careful. Talk to us where you need to. SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get in touch on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's keep things moving, whichever the case may be.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, this is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's Madaraka Day, and CT's waving the flag.
This is CT waving the flag.
It don't stop. I'm telling you, it's
You
great.
sound coerced. You need to look more enthusiastic.
You should have seen him at 6 o'clock. It was great. I wish I had taken a picture. Maybe John got something like that, but it's great.
What do you mean?
The needing tea factor is kicking in.
I am enthusiastic.
If you say so.
Yes, I am enthusiastic.
Very good.
Toned down, but enthusiastic.
Do you want
Fair
to
enough.
see CT waving the Kenyan flag? SpiceFM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You'll be able to catch the action. I'm telling you, it's riveting stuff.
Enthusiastically.
It's Madaraka Day. 9 minutes after 6 o'clock this morning, it's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the studio with you, CT Muga, Nduoko, and our guest host for this week, Wanjiro Gikonyo. And we continue to look at the financial situation in the country. And as those conversations continue this hour, we're going to kick it off with today's proverb.
When a needle falls into a deep well, many people will look into the well, but few will be ready to go down after it.
So true. So true. That is us. Yeah, really. I mean, I think the urge to engage and get involved in issues is seldom done. We like to talk, we like to philosophize, we are very good at that.
And we thank God for social media.
Yeah.
At least it gives an opportunity to get engaged.
Oh, that's engagement? I thought that's small talk.
It's engagement on small talk.
It's engagement.
Hey, today you're on top. I'll give you that one.
Okay, so the conversation continues. We're looking at, there's so many things. The debt crisis that the country is in at the moment. Clearly, the financial on-the-knee status that Kenya is in. And today we're looking at the effect that it will have on citizens in terms of taxes. Because the question is, we've been saying, and it seems like, how will Kenyans pay? How will this be paid for? Well, Kenyans will pay for it. And one of the primary ways that Kenyans will pay for this debacle that we are in is via taxes. There will be the introduction of more taxes. There will be the increments of the already existing taxes. Yes.
Do we actually have a debt crisis?
Hey,
CT.
If you do not know we do, then maybe you're evading all your taxes. You're not feeling it.
Do we have a debt crisis?
Of course we do. That is why
we owe money, but does it constitute a crisis?
Yes. The moment you get into the fiscal consolidation program of the IMF, the lender of the last resort, you're effectively going into receivership. You're saying we cannot handle.
We cannot afford the country.
We began negotiations with the IMF in 2019, not 2020 because of COVID, but in 2019 pre-COVID, because already we had a problem. So what is happening is our debt repayment rate is outstripping our ability to raise revenue. Now, CT, you said it yesterday. The IMF has this standard remedy that they go and implement around the world. It works for some countries, for some it doesn't work.
Not.
And the question we are asking, are the remedies the IMF have put in place for us under this program going to work for Kenyans, or will they take us back to the structural adjustment programs? And what are those remedies?
The remedies don't work on their own. They have to be people who are determined to ensure that whatever can work, works. Now, whether it is IMF or it is a Chinese or whoever it is likes doling out money to third world banana republics like ours. The truth of the matter is, what we're calling a debt crisis is a symptom. It is not the problem.
Well, how about we start off with just that? And there are two gentlemen who are going to join us in the conversation this morning. And the first of them, you can see us. We can see you. Jeffrey Koech is legal and policy advisor with the National Taxpayers Association and also an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Karibu sana to the Situation Room this morning.
Thank you so much.
Also joining us on the line is Jason Braganza, who is the executive director of Afrodad, a regional body dealing with matters, finance as well as community and social issues. So Karibu sana as well, Jason.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us in the room today. So let's start off. There's a little bit of a quibble here. Are we in a debt crisis? Let's start there before we actually start to look at the issues surrounding it and how essentially the government expects to get out of it, and how then we as citizens are going to be able to live through it. Jeffrey, let's start off with you. Are we in a crisis?
Yeah, I believe we are in a huge crisis because if we are collecting to repay debts, the much we are collecting is channeled towards debt repayment. That definitely tells us that this is a crisis. We are not managing our resources in a way that our own revenues should be used for development and such like things. But that is not the primary thing that our resources are doing. We are collecting to pay debts, and to me that is a clear indication of a crisis.
So, Geoffrey, are you saying that the crisis is in the debt, or is it in the way we manage our affairs?
The management of our affairs translates to the accumulation of debt.
Yes, it does.
We are seeking funds to help us recover from COVID.
Yes.
But what happened? We are squandering these funds.
Yes.
So our management of these finances are leading us to debt because we are borrowing this money to do A, but we end up doing B.
Yes. So the problem isn't the debt. The problem is our management, our system, specifically the people who manage these affairs on our behalf. That's where the problem is.
Right. But then the question we are asking also is then, if they mismanage, because yes, we are agreeing we have a political problem, a lack of political accountability. Yeah. What are the impacts on the taxpayer? The finance bill is under discussion at present. This is a structural adjustment finance bill. A lot of what has come to Kenyans by way of taxation since mid last year has been based on the prompting of the IMF, because the IMF believe Kenyans don't pay enough, that there's higher potential for tax, that more Kenyans need to pay more tax. And on some aspects, they are right. On some aspects, they are missing the political economy, because taxation is also about political economy. So are the proposals in the present finance bill, is the focus of government fair to Kenyans? Is this where the money needs to come from? That is the big question.
It is part of the big question.
It is part of the big question, yes.
I agree with what I didn't get your name.
CT Muga.
You're talking about can you see me, by the way?
No.
No, I can't.
It's a pity. So let me describe myself.
Oh, wow.
I am CT Muga. That's the description.
Muga.
Yes.
Yes. So I agree with CT Muga that our how we use this money is leading us to the crisis. And the reason why I'm saying it's a debt crisis is because during the management of these funds, the Mwananchi, who's the taxpayer and who's supposed to pay the debt, is not involved or considered. But when it comes to repayment, that is when they are calling us, City, you have to pay this through the finance bill. Geoffrey, you have to pay this through the finance bill. But during the misuse of these funds, it's just a political elite game. It's a chess game for the political elite. But the payment now has an adverse effect to us. And later on, we'll be talking about the principles of taxation as they was enumerated by Adam Smith. Where is the fairness in the collection? But we are not certain. Like today, we are just slapped with a tax that we have to pay. The IMF thinks that we are in a position to pay these taxes. So their proposals are aligned towards collection. But you cannot collect from an empty pocket. Like Wananchi, they are doing nothing currently. When you look at the cost of doing business is at all-time high. The cost of mere registration of business. We have two tiers of government. The county government is taxing us on this end. We have an obligation to the national government. So the problem is we are not in a position to fully realize the proposals of the IMF. It is taxing us to death, and we cannot realize the revenues that we are setting. It is so ambitious, and we'll end up accumulating the money because there are some of the structural adjustment programs that Kenya has been a beneficiary to all these years. But you see, we don't follow up the proposals to the latter. So we are left in a position whereby we cannot raise enough money to repay the loan. So we will borrow to repay. We will increase our debt ceiling. And the common man here will be left at the mercies of the political elite. That's why you see fuel, the cost of electricity, that in turn affects the cost of productivity in Kenya. So we are not producing anything. We cannot raise money as the common man like you and I.
Like one of the big proposals now is going to affect the cost of bread.
Yeah.
So the idea of removing basic goods from being zero-rated is something the IMF has been pushing. The Kibaki administration zero-rated a lot of basic goods because they said you need to cushion the most vulnerable, the lower, because 80% of Kenya's labor force is in the informal sector. And so in terms of earnings, that's really, a very small percentage of Kenyans pay are in the formal economy. So when you're looking at this also high level of inequality, you need to protect the lower level of the taxpayer. So the one thing the Kibaki administration did was to zero rate basic goods.
Right.
As an acknowledgement of saying, yes, we have inequality and everyone must pay tax, but we also have to acknowledge your ability to pay. Now, the IMF is not happy with that. And they started with, pushing for VAT on fuel. The first time round, they didn't succeed. They succeeded last year. They are still pushing for more. Now we are seeing the zero rating on bread being removed. So we are seeing the protections that are afforded to the lower incomes being eroded under this fiscal consolidation program.
Now, James, if I can just bring in James, I want to ask, so looking at this situation, because it's what you described as Wanjiru is describing this now from where we are. Bringing in Jason. So is this sustainable as we look at it now? If it's prescribed from the lender, if it's prescribed that this is essentially what you must do to be able to, one, pay us our money back and then get on the development track. Are we looking at a sustainable way of doing this kind of business where you're borrowing on the one hand and then taxing your people basically to death on the other hand to be able to maintain the status, Jason?
Hi, thank you very much. And first of all, a happy Madaraka Day to everybody in the studio and to all the listeners. I think maybe I'll just pick up the conversation first by saying we are in a debt crisis, and it's a combination of different factors. One is economic structure. One is the other is management, as been discussed by CT. And then there's also governance issues around how debt is being managed and utilized. The important thing is that we're witnessing is that the debt that's being procured or contracted by the government is not necessarily leading to the quick or anticipated tax revenues that were expected when the analysis was being done to borrow. So the rate at which we are borrowing outstrips the rate at which that debt is raising taxes. So that becomes a problem in the first hand. And then when you throw in an economic crisis that's been created by the pandemic, where you have tax revenues almost coming to a halt in many African countries, what you then have is a situation where you have to go back to the lender of last resort, the IMF, and this is a prime opportunity for them to continue with their imposition of conditionalities around the structural adjustment programs. And most often than not, as Wanjiru has said, and as Geoffrey has said, a lot of these programs from the IMF do come with very, very regressive tax measures, some of which we are seeing in the finance bill for 2021. So yes, there is going to be a lot of pain for citizens through taxes. I think personally the revenue expectations are overstated because the Kenya Revenue Authority has, at least for the last decade, missed its revenue target. So the ambitions that this new facility or new program is all of a sudden miraculously going to transform that, I think is a little bit misleading, particularly that since we're coming out of or trying to come out of a pandemic and an economic crisis. I think there's a little bit of wool being pulled over our eyes in this instance.
Jason, you work in the regional sphere, and there's a question we asked yesterday. Do these IMF programs work? And are there examples of where they've worked? And maybe linked to that is there an example of where they've been responsive to citizens and the needs of citizens? Because here, that's not the case.
On the whole, no. I think, back in the very early 80s and early 90s, when we first had PRSPs, the Public Reduction Strategy Programs, and the real Structural Adjustment Programs, the SAPs, many of them failed. There's been a lot of analysis and research that looked at how, the advice to literally privatize a lot of state entities and remove them from the control of the state, failed. In the mid 90s, Ghana was the gold standard, to the best of my recollection. But since then, there has been very little evidence to show that fiscal consolidation programs, especially those associated with cuts in public spending and public investments, together with expanding the tax base via the citizen as opposed to via economic activity, so expanding the economic or diversifying the economic structure, does not work. And what ends up happening is that there is actually a stagnation of economic growth and a lot of pressure being given on citizens to make up the deficits that are being accrued by the government. So to the best of my knowledge, these types of programs do not transform or actually create a condition where economies can transform themselves from the low tax base to a more broader tax base that's being observed in middle-income countries or countries in Europe and North America.
Jason, is it that these programs in and of themselves are ineffective and they don't work, or is it that the leadership of the countries where these programs have been initiated have taken advantage of what has been proposed to benefit themselves, and so as a result of that, the programs just end up going belly up?
You're a provocateur, CT. No, it's a combination of both. I think by the time you end up signing on to these programs, you're already on your knees as a government. Your space, your wiggle room is very limited. Therefore, you've got very little flexibility. And I think this is generally an accepted state of affairs when you enter these types of programs. The second part to this coin, of course, is the governance structure that we have in our region, on our continent, by and large, where then, as Geoffrey said, the political elites do try and take advantage of this situation. They hoodwink the public, of course, and a lot of the resources then find themselves doing other creative things within the economic system. Mm-hmm. So I think you have a point there to push this governance issue, because it's absolutely correct. But we must not take away the fact that your flexibility once you sign up to these programs are quite restricted, and it's indicative to where you are as an economy. You're sort of in the ICU. You've sort of come out of ICU and are opening the door to HDU, if you like to use a medical analogy there.
You see, the medical analogy, if you are talking about an ICU and an HDU, it takes into account a simple fact that you are receiving medication and that you are willing to receive the medication. But we are in an HDU ICU situation where there is medication that we can take and is available, but we don't take it. It is called actually ensuring that you do everything that you possibly can. For instance, you're talking about loans and you're talking about utilization. What about simply stopping these so-called development projects which seem to suck up everything?
Legacy projects.
Or call them what you want.
Not all development projects, it's the legacy.
Baptize them as you see fit, but they just suck up everything that seems to be brought into the country. And we know why.
But CT, the point is, you're missing the argument, or you're not helping take this argument forward. Why? Oh. We have signed. No. Let me finish.
I'm not getting in. I'm not into with the program.
Yeah. Okay. Your program. You're not on the program. You're taking us offline.
Okay. Let me.
The line is this one.
Tell me about the program.
The line is this one, CT. We have signed this agreement.
Oh,
government has signed on our behalf.
Oh, yes, they have.
As they sign, we will pay.
Yes.
IMF has come and done a whole due diligence. And if you were to put these issues to the IMF, they say, no, but we've looked at these indicators. Government has shown willingness to comply. So the question is, what do we do? Because IMF is saying they've done their due diligence to get us into this. They say they're not dealing with a banana republic. They say government has shown a willingness to comply. Yet, we know not.
Wanjiro,
so, Jason, what do we do?
Wanjiro, are they also telling us that we cannot stop these projects? Are they telling us we can't say, okay, halt, no more expenditure on these projects?
No,
are they also telling us that?
The document deals with some of them. So, actually, the recommendations in the report are, okay, the tax ones are a problem because the tax ones reflect the IMF thinking. In terms of curbing expenditure, the devil is in the detail because they say curb. They actually say there are 500 projects that need to be removed from the budget.
Good.
Which is a good thing. They also say you have to get rid of exemptions, these political exemptions. We lost 600B in 2019 in exemptions that are, some of them are dubious, politically motivated, companies merging with other companies and writing off some huge amounts in terms of exemptions. So there are many proposals in the report that are excellent for Kenya. But the trick is this. There are then others that are not excellent for Kenya.
But who is to make that decision does not rest the responsibility of the IMF. And I
That
think
is
that's
the
where
question.
I'm agreeing right there.
Yeah, but then where does that
the
put us?
government can make a decision which they are not making right now. It doesn't make sense that already you're on your knees, as Jason has said, as Jeffrey has alluded to, already on your knees. Somebody is coming to give you help. They've given you the spoon. Do you now want them to take the spoon and dip it into the food and then stuff it down your throat? There are decisions then that you must make. It is very clear right now, development projects don't make sense for the economy of this country. Put them on hold.
But there's this. The IMF is giving this money out in tranches. So what is going to happen is government is going to fulfill some of the conditions. It will overtax us.
Okay, I have to take a break. Wajira, I have to take a break. And Jeffrey, Jason, don't go anywhere. We continue this conversation in a bit, but we want to have a quick conversation about Samsung. And awesome is everywhere. Awesome is you. Awesome is me. Awesome is all of us. And looking at the A series of phones that they've introduced into the market, let's look at the Galaxy A52. CT, as you were waving your flag, I thought this is a moment that we could actually take a wonderful picture of and will be etched in our memories forever. And I see that the Galaxy A52 would be able to do that beautifully. Can I tell you what it can do?
Tell me what it can do.
Emblazoned in the MPEGs, what are they called? MPEGs of history forever, right? So let me tell you, it has an all new swanky design. It's minimal front camera housing. So I point, I shoot, you captured forever. Awesome colors. A fantastic screen. 6.5 full screen display. Again, we mentioned the camera and the battery that could keep taking. You see now, if you had started taking pictures at 6 o'clock of you waving them a flag, the battery would not have died. Many, many hours. Last 2 days on just a single charge. Don't you think this is something that we could use to capture this memory forever?
And you said the battery lasts forever as well.
Well, no. 2 days, 24 hours on a single charge. On a single charge, 24 hours on a single charge. We are capturing you today. This is what we would have wanted to do.
Okay. And this phone would do it better than other phones can do it.
Well, this one would do it exceptionally well. Samsung A52 in the series.
Okay.
And awesome is you, awesome is me, awesome is all of us as we celebrate Madaraka Day today. However, to be able to capture that moment when you're waving the flag, which we really hope you'll do for us once again, tell us about your awesome experience on SpiceFM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It's awesome everywhere. It's raining awesome. And that is what Samsung is offering us in the new A series phones. It's 29 minutes to 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, at 17 degrees, it's partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, highs of 24 and lows of 14 today. Light rain in Nyeri at 15, it'll go to highs of 22. We're looking at highs of 25 in Nakuru, currently partly sunny at 17. It's sunny in Eldoret at 16, highs of 25 and lows of 12. 29 will be the high in Kisumu today. It's sunny at 23. It'll come down to lows of 19. The lows will be 14 in Kakamega. It's sunny at 24. Rain showers in parts of Mombasa at 29, highs of 30. Highs of 30 as well in Malindi, where it's raining at 29. Light rain in Kampala at 25, highs of 27 and lows lows of 19. It's also raining in Dar es Salaam at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 22. Johannesburg is raining, quite chilly a day today, highs of 13 and lows of 2. Light rain at 25 in Lagos at 32, that will be the recorded high, and lows of 26. Mostly cloudy conditions at 24 in Kinshasa with highs of 33. Looking out into Beijing, 28 degrees, sunny conditions going into early evening, highs of 27 and lows of 16, and sunny conditions in Paris. It's a warm day, it'll go to highs of 28. It's also warm in London, highs of 25 coming into the summer. New York is clear at 15 coming into Tuesday. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 16.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Not too much this morning. It's actually looking pretty good, guys, on the roads. Enjoy it, because tomorrow we're going back to factory settings. Not much traffic around the city. The bypasses are flowing very well, coming off of Thika Road on the major highways, Mombasa Road as well. The construction continues, however, so everybody's asked to be a little careful as you traverse the roads this morning, but we don't have any major issues right now. The ICD route, we're looking at the southern bypass all the way through to Kikuyu, out towards Wayaki Way, coming round and then going towards the Red Hill bypass is looking pretty good this morning. So let's be careful. Whichever way we choose to use, you want to get there safe rather than sorry. All right? SpiceFM on Twitter, just in case through the day. Text us 40127.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Where we were, why I don't quite agree with CT, is we've agreed we have an expenditure problem, we've got a debt problem, actually an expenditure crisis, debt crisis, a political crisis, all coming together. And even the IMF said, you know, we've got
we don't have
a 3-in-1. Now, the problem that we have is then the IMF has come and gotten into an agreement with the Kenyan government, has put in some good things in there, some bad things in there, that Kenyans will be forced to bear, and Kenyans have no say. So the real problem here is that we are sitting ducks without a say in the IMF program, without real say in our budget process. At least when there's pushback, there's political pressure, Parliament will relent on taxation. But there are other decisions the government is making without public scrutiny. So the reason why I kind of agree with you, City, but don't quite, is because the IMF is not necessarily the bad guy in this situation and is not the good guy, because they got into an agreement with a government that violates and betrays all its undertakings. And they have signed and said, we believe they will. They haven't in the last 6 years. Why do you think they will? But the IMF also did not insist on the oversight and enforceability. Why? Because for them, their interest is the global economic situation, is them getting their money back.
Yes.
So the point I'm making is that we need to open up this this IMF program, it gives us an opportunity to hold government to account, but we need to push back against both the IMF as well as the Kenyan government. And the question is, how do we do that?
Jason, how do we do that? And I think Jeffrey can wade in on this as well. So we can kick off with Jason. How do we do that? I mean, it sounds very prescriptive. We must then be part of the conversation. We must agitate towards government. We must open up the discussion. But how? How is that supposed to be done?
I think there's a number of ways that are already constitutionally in place, right? I mean, the finance bill, for example, is open for public consultation. I think we need to have more conversations like the one we're having this morning to interrogate in a lot more depth what the proposals there mean from a public debt point of view. We need a lot more public and civic education around what public debt actually means. You'll be surprised, actually, the Treasury, and I will have to give credit where it's due. They do publish a lot of the debt information. It's not the easiest place to find it. The website is a minefield, but it is out there. It is in the public domain. We need a lot more civic engagement and civic education on understanding what exactly public debt looks like in the country. The development projects that CT and Wanjiru have spoken very passionately about, we again need to continue paying very close attention to what is involved in those projects and the financing aspects especially. So, for example, when we talk about some of the exemptions that are being proposed in the finance bill in the extractive sector or other sectors in the digital space, what does that actually mean? Recently, there were exemptions that were passed in the House for Japanese consultants, companies that are working in special economic zones. What does that actually mean for Kenyan citizens, and how do we engage in those conversations? So I think a lot more pressure there, a lot more pressure on the transparency, accountability, and governance agenda. And this is a lot of what the Okoa Uchumi Coalition, together with some of the work AFRODA does on trying to push this agenda at the national level. We have something called the African Borrowing Charter, which stipulates or sets out a set of principles that guides how the general public can engage on public debt issues with their parliamentarians, with the government. So there's a lot more work there. A lot more activism needs to come out. And I think that can only be done once there's a deeper understanding of what and how public debt looks like in our country.
And from your end, Jeffrey, what do you think? I mean, we're talking about citizens then bearing the brunt of this without even knowing it. But guess what? Kenyans, at the end of the day, for fear of, prosecution or anything else, will just up and pay the taxes. Would rather do that than get into any kind of sticky situation. So what must happen?
First of all, I think the political elite have pushed us to the limit, and they know one thing, that Kenyans are resilient lot. Indeed, we are. However, it's a matter of them taking advantage. And what CT has said, that it's all about the management. When you look at our governance structure, I'll say this without fear of contradiction, because Parliament is the weakest link, especially on public finance management. I miss the days of the Honorable Speaker Marende, where Parliament could have a stand on something. The current Parliament cannot sanction the CS Treasury and question him on anything. When the bill is proposed or anything, it just sails through Parliament. And that's why we are seeing the judiciary as our last line of defense, because we are at the mercy of the executive. It has swallowed in Parliament. So when you look at the finance bill, you look at the IMF, we look at the loans that we are seeking, it's up to Parliament to question all these things. But we look at the select committees, they are inviting the suspects of these COVID billionaires from KEMSA. And nothing is done beyond that. Parliament cannot do anything apart from just questioning them and letting them go. We look at our parliamentarians, especially the youthful ones. They are on Twitter complaining with us. So you question yourself, you have a platform, but you are here with me on Twitter.
And you, who is supposed to be in that position, legislating for some things, are complaining like I am. So who is to help the other?
Exactly, because you see their main roles are representation, oversight, and legislation.
Right.
The finance bill is before them. It's all about legislation. They look at it and say, we do away with this one, we do away with this, we do away with this one. They look at the money that is coming, oversight. How is this money spent? And you see how we Kenyans flooded the IMF pages on Twitter and Facebook.
Yes.
Asking the IMF not to give us this money. The MPs, in their wisdom,
joined,
of which they lack, they should have picked up the activism of the people and go to Parliament and tell the CS we are not taking this loan. You see, the Kenyans are saying that we should not take these loans, or even if we are taking them, let us direct them to specific projects. The same as what Jason has said, projects that are going to help us to pay these loans. We are looking at the project the government is doing, and we are wondering, how will we get the money from? How the 3 billion pot in Kisumu, how will we raise 3 billion from that pot?
You know, Jeffrey, I think we're being unfair to our parliamentarians.
Yes,
interesting.
You see, why I'm thinking we're being unfair, you actually expect these people to legislate. You actually expect them to hold the executive to account. I mean, for heaven's sake. What makes you think that we voted them in? That's what we thought. But these people are parliamentary entrepreneurs. They are not there to do these things that you ask. They are there to figure out how much money, yes, are we getting, that they get. But then how do we ensure that we benefit directly? These are businessmen and women. They are not what we think they are. So we elect them as one thing, and they morph before our very eyes and become creatures that we have difficulties understanding. Now, let us deal with the creatures as they are, not as
we expect them to be,
yes,
not
not the aspirational creatures that we thought they were going to be. So when you're talking about the political class, and this includes them as well, or people who are hell-bent on doing this corrosive business that they have because of the might and the positions that we've given them, to expect them to do whatever we expect, a complete waste of time, because they will not do it. They have shown us consistently that they have no interest whatsoever in ensuring that they actually serve the people who elect them. They are not going to do that.
CT, the needle is in the well. What are you proposing? Because what you're telling us, I think, reflects the sentiments of majority of Kenyans, that we are fed up with the lack. And by the way, to be fair to Parliament, they do investigate, like you say, COVID billionaires.
No, they don't.
They investigate medical equipment service corruption.
Then when they finish investigating, they pack the paper and leave it to gather dust.
They make recommendations that are not implemented. Where they catch us is, if you check, did they go through all the motions? Yes. There are recommendations there. Right now, actually, to be fair again, or to be alert, Parliament has told the CS all borrowed money must be earmarked. So they must know where it's going.
Of course
it's
they
not
must.
It's not the first time they're saying that.
And do you know why they're saying
it? The point is this. The point is this. Parliament says the right things. If you look at the records, they have actually, last year they demanded the list of projects from the CS. The CS didn't produce them. They have again demanded.
But do you know why they
so
demand
the question
this,
is, the thing to watch, will they pass the finance bill? Will they pass the budget? Because the CS has not complied. Actually, there is now a list of projects in their estimates. But that list does not give the information that is required to hold them to account. So the point I'm making is this. The devil is in the detail. And we are being played. And this game actually requires you to dig through documents and reports.
We're actually not being played. You see, these people keep showing us very clearly what they are.
And I keep saying, when somebody shows you their hand, this is not a game of poker when you're keeping your cards close, played to your chest. They're showing you like this. And we choose not to believe it. I don't understand. How much more clear is it supposed to be?
Yes, but then the needle is in the well, and I'm asking, how do we get it out? Because we can do what we are doing here. We are discussing the needle. We're like, oh dear, it's gone. Oh dear, now we can't do this. We've agreed the needle is in the well. What do we do? Jason says...
Forget the well and forget the needle.
Uh-huh.
Okay? In fact, demolish that well. It's causing us unnecessary problems. Why should we be thinking of going into a well to look for
well, so that you can
also
needle. Drown together with the needle.
When you know very well you can buy other needles.
Send them home.
We are going to send them home.
But now when?
But the same thing.
What are you saying? City, give us a solution.
Wait.
Our elections are rigged. They don't work.
Oh, no, our elections work very well.
They don't work.
Oh, they work.
2017 election did not work.
It worked.
It did not work. It was rigged. And people died because of that rigging. And results were computer generated.
Okay.
So how the needle is in the well, City, give us a solution.
Okay.
Our problem is
what you're asking me to give you is a solution that will make you happy.
No. Any solution. Right now, you're giving me diagnosis, and I agree with most of it. But what do we do?
Actually, we are doing what should be done.
I think it is very necessary to put, first of all, because even if you look at the stages of any process that you go through, the first thing that you must do is realize that there's a problem. If you had Kenyans wallowing about in this situation, you really don't know what's going on. But to start to dissect some of these issues and to have these conversations, I believe it is absolutely necessary to put it out there, seeing it for what it is.
If there's a
Many people did not know that there was this IMF problem. Many people, we need help for the economy. We're getting money from IMF. Period. Problem solved.
Let me ask you then.
Now, when you start to open it, there's an insight that you have given to people that they previously did not have. And
Great.
I think that is you can't solve the problem in its entirety at once.
But you can't solve something you don't even understand or
you
know.
have to start to chip away at it
What
and
can
understand
we
what the
do?
problem really is. And this is, I think, we are doing.
Jason has told us there's an opportunity on the finance bill. Parliament has to pass this parliament that works for us, figuratively.
You mean this group of profiteers whom we refer to as parliamentarians?
Right. There's a finance bill on the table. There's a budget on the table. They have given conditions to the CS that the CS has not met. What can we do to ensure that they do not pass that budget until the CS meets those conditions?
Okay, Jason, take a stab at it, please. Please.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think Jeffrey has touched on this. In addition to the public submissions, public interest litigation is a route that can actually work. The judiciary, as Jeffrey said, has been very progressive. If you look over the last 5 or 6 years on issues of tax and fiscal matters, they pronounced themselves very strongly on the Kenya-Mauritius double tax agreement, for example, a couple of years ago, which was quite monumental, where they declared it illegal and unconstitutional because the government didn't follow laid out processes for signing double tax agreements, which, by the way, is a contribution to the tax revenue drainage this country faces, which then leads to the indebtedness that we're facing, and then this vicious cycle of having to borrow to pay back that we've been discussing the entire time. Recently on the BBI, a massive ruling there on the constitutionalism of the BBI. So I think, we need to start also sort of reflecting back into the early 90s when there was a lot of legal activism that was going on and use of the law to advance civic movements and civic mobilization on the impunity that the government of that day was taking on, and also the impunity of the government of today that is currently practicing. And I think that's the word that I would use. It's not anything other than just impunity, and the fact that the politicians are very good at then dividing along factional lines to then create that atmosphere where one is a victim and one is the transgressor. And you then have to choose which evil you want to support, and forget that both of them are exploiting the citizen for not even a positive gain, but for negative gain, which is extraction, political extraction. So I think for me, the use of the law, public interest litigation, the judiciary, we're in a good moment with the judiciary. I think we should try and exploit that as much as possible.
Well, I mean, even as the conversations continue, I got to thank both of you for joining us this morning, Jeffrey and Jason, in this conversation. And I mean, I do believe that as we start to talk about it, as you start to rip it apart, open it up, I think those are the first steps into looking into problem solving and solution finding for a lot of these. So I want to say thank you very much, Jason Braganza, who is the Executive Director of AfroDad, and Jeffrey Koech, the Legal and Policy Officer for the National Taxpayers Association, thank you for being in the Situation Room with us this morning. Asante Sana.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So, as we take a break now, again, got to look at Samsung and the A series that they're offering up for brilliant communication. Today, how awesome are you? You're awesome. I am awesome. You're awesome. There's a little bit of awesome in everybody. And what these A series are actually able to do is make communication quite easy, great colors and great technology put into casing that you can use for yourself. So we're documenting what is important to you, what is necessary for you to capture when you're thinking of a phone and when you're thinking of memories that you can capture on a day like this. What is it that you're thinking of? What do you think of capturing, Titi, apart from you capturing the flag?
As in, what would I like to take pictures of?
Oh, yeah.
That is beyond flowers and bees.
Selfies. Do you do selfies, CT?
No.
Do you know what a selfie is?
Yes. I do have an idea. It's me taking a picture of myself with my phone.
Now, this let's even look specifically at the A50 2 series that we had looked at earlier, but just looking at it in a little bit more detail. It allows you, it's got a 20 MP selfie camera with custom filters. Again, the battery can last 2 days. So here you are waving that flag. You can take more than enough pictures of yourself over a period without having to charge the phone. Enhanced durability, and coming out with the Samsung series allows you to be awesome, me to be awesome, everybody to be awesome.
Awesome.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Chilled Spice.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me, what channel is SpiceFM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
That conversation this morning really about, how are we going to solve these problems that we're seeing? And, just as we're wrapping up that conversation, Wanjiro, the solutions, finding solutions, starting off. And I really do feel that having these conversations regularly, really digging at the inner core of what could be the issue. Like I said, many people heard this IMF a solution to the debt or solution to the financial issues, economic issues in the country. And they said, oh, okay, IMF is giving us money. Great. And that's about the size of it. But if we're looking deeper to ask how we're going to solve a problem as citizens, whereby citizens don't even know that the problem exists. And I think uncovering it is absolutely important.
Yeah, and I think Jason started out with that. It's civic education. People need to understand. So conversations are very important. And then pressure. So I think from understanding, it's then moving into pressure and recognizing that citizens have to occupy that space. I think what happened with the passage of the Constitution, what has happened with this whole debt kind of borrowing situation is that for democracy to work, citizens must be engaged. So there's really an assumption that we have rights, but we must claim them. And I think our engagement needs to pick up pace. And to engage effectively, we need to understand, because it's very technical, it's very nuanced. So the idea where we had one issue, Moi must go, I think there is also a call for the present administration to go and parliament to go. But beyond that, in these negotiations, we have to get into the detail. So our civic education really has to be around issues and advocacy.
I agree completely. You see, everything that civil society talks about is primarily focused on the interest of the public. Even when I don't understand it or even I disagree with it, I can see where they're coming from, and it's a good place. But where, in my mind, there is usually a disconnect is how far-reaching it is. The networking, yes, the civil society can't go everywhere in all the counties, but how do you network so that these things that you have, these wonderful things that you bring out, like what Mr. Braganza was talking about, what Mr. Koech was talking about, these are things that can be distilled and made simple so that the net beneficiary, who's the Mwananchi, understands it. But how do you get it to the Mwananchi to understand it? How is it broken down so that you can understand that when you talk about 1 billion shillings, break it down. 1 billion shilling means, you see these schools you have here?
We can fix them.
20
of them could be hospitals.
Yes, 50 of them. How do you break down this information that somebody understands? Oh, so you mean this is what it means? When a politician gives me money, a very small portion of what he has received for whatever they have done beyond his salary, this is what it means when it comes to what I'm then denied.
Totally. So the missing link is from the conversation at this point is to the widespread
break
civic
it down
education.
so
Give
that,
information and
so that
break
it's
it down.
And mobilization, because
Absolutely.
that education needs to result in pressure.
Yes,
absolutely.
Because the alternative narrative is that this money and the corruption that we talk about and how it has been cascaded down even to the level of the counties is how individuals benefit. And then there is the hope eternal that it might also trickle down to you. Tell them that is not how it works. What it works is you losing out.
Okay, CT, tell us quickly about needles and wells and haystacks.
Okay, I will do as you ask. Quickly, they are needles. When a needle falls into a deep well, many people will look into the well, but few will be ready to go down after it.
Perhaps it's the going down after it that we should do now.
After
going after
and
that
a strategy.
Yes.
For going after it.
Yes.
Happy Madaraka Day to everybody today. June 1st, a day to remember. CT is still waving the flag, and he's going to do so right until 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Kisumu County has this year had the privilege of hosting Madaraka Day celebrations at the Jomo Kenyatta International Stadium. Early after the stadium was open to only 3,000 people who'd received invitation cards, a number of residents who'd, as the president is expected